What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto awakened a forbidden dojutsu that rivaled the Rinnegan? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Sakura, are you absolutely sure? Yes, we've discussed this and I've looked over the theory hundreds of times. I can do it. Kakashi sighed tiredly, running a hand through his unruly white hair. I know. This is just extremely dangerous, he said quietly. Her eyes softened, and she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. I wouldn't do this if I had another choice. He gave her a stiff nod, allowing the two of them to enter a deep underground cave. Sakura ran through a special set of hand seals, activating a seal that blocked off all waves of chakra from entering or leaving. She required absolute secrecy. In the deepest room of the cavern, Sakura lowered her third and final sacrifice within the ritual circle. The small deer in her arms whined and tried to escape, but the paralytic held, allowing the seal to trap the animal in. Forgive me, she whispered, brushing her fingertips against its snout. Sakura got to her feet, standing near the mouth of the cave where she took in her handiwork. 3 animals were locked down against the cold ground, black scribbles of long and tedious seals keeping them trapped in place. A special scroll was laid out in front of her, and she gave a deep exhale before steeling her nerves. Here we go. Clapping her hands together with a burst of chakra, she watched as the scroll in front of her shot out a web of intricate sealing, surrounding each animal in a wide circle. White strips of ash erupted from the ground, sticking onto the sacrifices like a second skin. There was an anguished cry of pain before the white form increased in height as if it was growing. Sakura slammed her hands onto the dirt, sending a wave of chakra. Kachiose. Edo Tensai no Jutsu. The seals vanished as the white strips of ash burst away, revealing 3 revived shinobi standing before her. Kakashi took in a sharp breath, meeting the gaze of the man in the middle. Obito's eyes widened, the cracks in his skin making the scarred side of his face seem strained. Kakashi? Is this? Edo Tensai, a gruff voice answered to his right. Jiraiya crossed his arms, frowning. Though, never in a million years would I have predicted you'd be the one to revive me. Sakura decided to take it as a compliment, giving all 3 shinobi a courteous bow of her head. Forgive me, I wouldn't have done this if there was another choice. Itachi stood to Obito's left, raising his hand in an experimental manner. You've changed something. I can hardly feel my chakra. I've altered the jutsu to accept animal sacrifices instead of human ones, she explained, and there's an added seal that suppresses and converts your chakra so it's undetectable. Jiraiya whistled. Never thought you'd take up sealing, Sakura-chan. How did you manage to get my DNA anyway? I'm pretty sure my body is under leagues of water. The toad summoning scroll, she said with a small smile. And the crow contract for Itachi-san. It took years to find, but I managed. And mine? Obito raised an eyebrow. Pretty sure I burst into dust from Kaguya's attack. Yours was much more difficult, Sakura admitted. But because your Sharingan was in Kakashi's body for so long, a bit of your chakra remained. I was able to separate and purify it in order to get it to a usable state. Impressive indeed, Jiraiya said in approval. I guess I'm not surprised you managed to excel in Fuinjutsu. You've always been the smartest of the bunch. Naruto was never into it, saying it took too much studying and extra calligraphy practice. Sakura's laugh died in her throat, and she felt her expression contort at Naruto's name. All 3 shinobi stiffened at the realization. There's a reason you called us out, Obito said carefully. What's going on? She swallowed, receiving an encouraging nod from Kakashi. She gave them a quick and brief rundown of the events after Jiraiya and Itachi's death, as neither of them had been there to see the resurrection of the 10 tails, Uchiha Madara, the infinite Tsukuyomi, and Kagaya Otsutsuki. So 7 years ago, after Kagaya had been sealed away with Sabaku Tensai, Sasuke challenged Naruto to a final battle to see whose resolve would triumph over the other. Itachi's eyes widened at this. They fought in the Valley of the End, with Sasuke ultimately killing Naruto. What? Jiraiya gasped, mouth wide. Sakura nodded firmly. Kakashi and I believe that this is when Sasuke truly lost all parts of his past self. He declared that he would carry the hate of the world as his older brother had once done, dealing with all of the shinobi problems, including executing justice and punishment. Using his newly developed Rinnegan, he forced all 9 Biju under his control and killed every cage that were trapped in the infinite Tsukuyomi. All 3 looked petrified. Now flash forward 7 years to the present, she continued, there are no more shinobi villages. Sasuke completely decimated all forms of community and life, using the Biju to their destructive potentials. The shinobi who survived the 4th war scattered across the lands, but even then, nothing is the same. There are no alliances. There is no war. But at the same time, there is no life. Silence reigned through the cave, with the only sound being Sakura's own heartbeat. At last, Itachi cradles his face in the palm of his hands. This may be my punishment for everything I've done, he muttered. I've wronged him incredibly so that he's come to this. You're not to blame, Itachi, Jiraiya spoke, his voice low with what Sakura frighteningly recognized as anger. Sasuke is responsible for his actions and him only. And you were not given any other choice, Itachi-san, she added softly. Please do not put this on yourself. Obito grimaced. So in the end, Sasuke became what Madara and I had once tried to become. Kakashi nodded once. He's become Kagaya Otsutsuki, controlling the world with power and fear. Then why are we here? Obito asked at last. We really can't do anything for you. Sakura felt her own heart skip a beat and Kakashi refused to meet his eyes. After a tense moment, she took a deep breath. I'm going back in time to change everything. The reaction was instantaneous. Are you crazy? Jiraiya shouted. There's a good reason why no one's ever attempted such a straining time-space jutsu. You'll tear yourself apart not minding the chakra needed to pull off such a task. I know of the difficulties, Jiraiya-sama, but please hear me out. I've been thinking about this for the past 6 years, and developing the necessary points, she said defiantly. Kakashi, you've honestly been letting her do this? The Sannin demanded. He sighed softly. Like we first said, there is no other way to turn. Sakura had glazed over much of the destruction and change that has happened. At this rate, the entire elemental nations will perish within a decade. That quieted the cave once again. Rubbing her forehead, Sakura removed the large scroll from her back, unsealing it with a mixture of her blood and chakra. It clicked open and she rolled the entire contents open for Jiraiya's eyes. This is what I've been developing for the past 6 years, she said, watching as all 3 men approached her open scroll. There were thousands upon thousands on tiny markings that ran along the paper. This, Jiraiya traced over the center of her seal, eyes impossibly wide. This is Orochimaru's Fushi Tensei, yes, she confirmed. I studied the way he was able to transfer his soul from one body to another, and twisted his work for my own needs. I'm not planning on taking this body with me, just my soul. It'll put less pressure on the chakra needed, Jiraiya nodded absent-mindedly. But it would still be an enormous amount, comparable to a biju. Sakura jabbed a thumb at the diamond seal on her forehead. This is why I am the only one who can do this. I've been collecting chakra in my yin seal since the war ended, without having released it once. If my calculations are right, it's enough to warp the time by 14 years. You'll be 9, Itachi quickly did the math. What do you hope to accomplish then? Actually, my goal is to gather enough chakra to add 4 more years so I can arrive when I'm 5, she admitted. The first thing that needs to get done is to prevent the Uchiha massacre, which is why I brought you here, Itachi-san. And you need me, to understand the movements of the Akatsuki, Obito said in realization. As well as stopping the Eye of the Moon plan. She nodded. Jiraiya scowled. I'll admit you've thought this out quite thoroughly, but that doesn't make it any less simpler. You're messing with something completely out of our leagues. Then I'll die trying, she shot back fiercely. Even if it takes my death, I'll save Naruto, and I'll save Sasuke too. I've lived long enough here anyway. All eyes laid on her at the statement, and Sakura straightened her back in determination. Then I will help you, Obito said first, eyes darting to Kakashi with a nod. I have no other way to redeem my unforgivable actions. Obito, Kakashi scrunched his face. No, it's true, I don't need your arguments, Kakashi, he raised a hand, turning back to her. I'm putting my faith in you. She nodded firmly, feeling her chest lift at the statement. She wouldn't fail him. It won't be misplaced. I'll help you as well, Sakura-san, Itachi spoke. I've failed Sasuke greatly by trying to do everything on my own, so this time, I'll put my trust in you like I did with Naruto. Fine. Jiraiya crossed his arms, getting to his feet again. You better make sure Naruto stays alive this time. He was supposed to be Hokage, you know? And he will, she said without a moment of hesitation. He'll be a great one. A large hand clasped her shoulder and she turned to see Kakashi give her a reassuring grip. We're going to change history. All of us. Sakura stared at the white mask in her hands, giving it one last glance over before pulling it over her face. She strapped on her chest plate that all standard Anbu bore along with the armguards. Turning to the mirror, she studied her reflection. Her hair had been temporarily dyed an unassuming and passable dark brown, hiding her most distinctive trait. The Anbu geared sparked a sudden memory from her past, but she pushed it aside, satisfied with her appearance. There was a small poof of smoke on her dresser and a tiny palm-sized lizard came crawling forth at startling speed. Sakura-chan, Danzo's moving. It's time. She nodded, letting the reptile crawl onto her hand. Say, do I look passable enough? She questioned. The lizard made a face. If 8-year-olds could pass as Anbu, then yes. She sighed. I'm 29. And besides, the Sharingan can decipher when a henge is being used. Is Mika still trailing Shisui? Taking a deep breath, she calmed her nerves. Let's go. Feeling the tug of her Hiraishin seal on her summon, she released a spike of chakra and vanished from the room. Landing silently on top of the Naka River, Sakura turned her gaze to see a small brown lizard on the wall of the cliff. She quickly concealed her chakra and her own heartbeat to where hardly anything was left. Mika, she greeted the small summon. Shisui? 2 streets down from above us by the temple. Hurry Sakura-chan, I can sense fighting. Nodding in thanks, Sakura bolted up the cliff's face, spreading out her senses to try and track other shinobi, specifically, Root. Danzo would have called them for aid as soon as the battle started. When her scan returned negative, she threw herself over the cliff's edge onto land, heart silently pounding in her chest. This was the moment she had been preparing for 3 years. She could not fail. Breathe, Sakura. She flickered down the streets as Mika had said, spotting 2 figures tucked away in the middle of the road by the temple. Chakra was wildly fluctuating around them, and to Sakura's anger, Shisui's right eye was already closed and bleeding. She flipped through a well-practiced hand seal, focusing on Shisui's flickering form. She only had one chance. Once the element of surprise was over, her mission would get impossibly harder. Releasing a specialized substitution jutsu, she felt her body being tugged forward, and in a blink of an eye, she was engaging Danzo. Shisui warped to her position down the street. His mismatched eyes widened at the sudden change in target, but Sakura was faster. Her right hand came over his heart before Danzo could jump away, and high-frequency chakra erupted from her palm. His back exploded outwards with blood and broken skin, the pressure of her chakra snapping his bones and rupturing all organs in range. Her other hand immediately formed a chakra scalpel, lengthening to rival a tanto, and slashed across Danzo's eyes, disabling his Sharingan. His body seemed to fall forward in slow motion, and Sakura quickly snatched Shisui's right eye from the elder's grip. Danzo sagged against the ground not a moment after 6 chakra signatures flashed into the scene. Root, stand down, she ordered, muffling her voice with chakra. Danzo is dead. The silence seal has been removed due to his demise and orders from Hokage-sama state for Root's separation. To her expectation, none of the shinobi moved. Sai had told her there were no certain orders or regulations in the chance of Danzo's death. He was simply that confident. And given the fact that he had all their emotions suppressed, no soldier felt an inkling of retaliation for their leader's death. It was the ultimate price to pay in the end. Giving the specific root hand signs that Sai had taught her, she signaled for retreat and hide. To her utmost relief, all 6 flashed away. Crouching low next to Danzo's broken body, she forced his chin up and ripped out his stolen Sharingan. Although it was completely obliterated from her attack, the outside remained perfectly intact. Flipping through a familiar set of seals, she bit her thumb and palmed the dirt ground. Kachiyose no Jutsu. A cloud erupted under her hand as a large lizard appeared in the smoke. He was well over 3 meters in length with jagged scars marking the left side of his face. A long forked tongue slithered out. Mission success? He asked, looking at the corpse. Success, she confirmed. Body ready for your disposal. He grunted. I accept the highest form of recompense for having to shoulder this disgusting excuse of a shinobi. She nearly smirked. Of course, Kanae. His jaw opened impossibly wide, and after a moment of effort, Danzo's body was swallowed whole. I'll never get used to that, she muttered, smiling slightly. Taste like dirt too, Kanae grumbled. Take care of my two fools. Of course. The large lizard poofed out of existence just as Mika and Sei came crawling forward. Brother left? Mika asked. Sakura nodded. Mika, I need you to track down Shisui again. I have no doubt he escaped the moment he could. He's still injured and disorientated, so the faster we find him the better. Sei, track down Itachi. Shisui will attempt to give him his remaining eye to commit suicide. We can't have that. Part 2 of our mission starts now. With a silent salute, both lizards disappeared. Crouching one more, she pulled out a blank storage scroll, created specifically for medical purposes. Sterilizing Shisui's Sharingan, she placed it at the center and sealed the organ with a quick hand sign. She tucked the scroll into her hip bag and rose to her feet. As she stood alone in the clearing, Sakura let out a tight breath. She was going to better the future. She swore it. Shaking away all her thoughts, Sakura flashed away, heading towards the backside of the Hokage tower where Danzo's office was held. Knowing the news of his death would ultimately reach the Hokage's ears, she had no time to spare. Utilizing a proper henge, she transformed into her old height, giving the average appearance of an Anbu soldier. She slipped into the secret route passageways underneath the ground, heading towards the room at the far end of the hall. She had unhinged this office once before in her past timeline, she was positive she could do it again. Overriding the seal on the door, she entered the office and immediately went to work. All hidden compartments she remembered were open and trashed out, sealed papers and mission scrolls were broken, and all classified information she could get her hands on were brought out into the open. By the end, the entire office had been turned inside out. With hope, Sarutobi would send someone to check Danzo's office and would find it as such. She needed him to know of all the things that man had carried out behind his back, every little mission detail. As much as she respected the third, there was an inkling of bitterness that crept into her heart when she realized he had simply not tried enough with Danzo. He had purposefully turned a blind eye to the man's activities, and that was something that Sakura could not let go. A small cloud materialized on the messy desk, and Mika appeared. Shisui's currently hiding in the forest behind the Uchiha compound, he revealed. He quite injured and half blind, I don't think he's going to move for a while. Straightening her back, she nodded. Itachi? In a training ground on the other side of the village. Sei's keeping an eye on him. Satisfied, she held out her hand. It's time to wrap this up. Lead me to him. The lizard crawled up her arm and rested himself on her shoulder as Sakura jumped out the window, removing the henge. She leapt soundlessly from roof to roof, flickering in the air to make her movements were completely undetectable to the normal eye. Within 10 minutes, she had covered the distance and sped into the thick forest. Northwest, Sakura-chan, Mika guided, flicking his tongue in the air. He's in the same spot. She spread out her senses, completely hiding her own, and felt for his signature. Got him. Without another word, Mika poofed away, undoubtedly to report to Sei. Sakura treaded carefully, knowing that any wrong movement could throw him off. He had been wrongfully attacked and beaten by a council member of Konoha, and she could only trust in his pacifist nature to not charge her on sight. When she was in 20 meters of him, she finally spotted his messy hair, body hunched between two large branches. He was definitely hidden well. Purposefully stepping onto a branch, she allowed her presence to be known. Shisui's head snapped up, his left eye blazing red. Sakura stopped moving towards him entirely, allowing him his space. Danzo is dead, she said firmly, hands out in a universal sign of peace. I am here to help. Please trust me. Shock filtered through his face before confusion. Who are you? I know Danzo keeps his own Anbu division, and I've never seen you before. Slowly, as if to show all her movements, she reached into her pouch and pulled out a storage scroll. After a hand sign and some chakra, she lifted his stolen Sharingan. I am a shinobi of Konoha. Will you allow me to transplant your eye back in? There's only so much time it can be sustained outside a body. If he wasn't surprised before, his expression definitely showed it now. The Sharingan couldn't be duplicated, and there were no traces of genjutsu around her. Yet even with solid proof, she knew she was putting him in a dangerous position. By allowing her to do the procedure, he was giving her direct opportunity to possibly take his other eye. "Are you the one who substituted me during our fight?" he asked carefully. Finding no point in lying, she gave a firm nod. "Then you're also the one who's responsible for Danzo's death?" "His death was necessary," she said softly. "As much as I dislike to take life without reason, please do not mourn for him." After a silent moment, Shisui gave her a hesitant, but solid nod, and Sakura took this as her cue to approach. Exhaling in relief, she covered the distance between them with visible steps, crouching by his side with his eye in hand. "Head back," she murmured, pushing back his forehead so that he was lying on his back. She placed her free hand over his bloody socket, diagnosing the injury. Since the eye was forcibly ripped out, there were a lot of torn nerve endings that needed repair before she did the transplant. Sending in her chakra, she concentrated, starting the tedious process of realigning his eye socket and fixing the broken connections. Minutes ticked by in silence as she gave all her concentration in healing. The eye was an incredibly delicate area, especially for the Uchiha, and one mistake could mean blindness. She was suddenly thankful for all the times she had studied and soothed Kakashi's Sharingan issues. When all was set, she began preparing for the transplant. "Since when does Konoha start training them so young?" Shisui finally spoke, his voice dry. "You can't possibly be older than 10. "Do not think my size indicates my age," she said evenly. "You can't lie to me," he said confidently. "I can tell you still have baby fat around your wrists." Curse him. Why did she even bother opening her mouth? "Shisui-san, if you don't shut your mouth and let me concentrate, I'll transplant your eye in backwards." Purposefully. To her utter surprise, he let out a chuckle, lips twisting into a grin. As much as she wanted to sigh in exasperation, Sakura had a job to finish. "Listen, it is of utmost importance that you pull through with your Koto Amastakami. Even with Danzo dead, if the Uchiha coup manages to begin, there is no safe ending for anyone, do you understand?" Shisui stiffened immediately, left eye boring into her. Danzo gave the possibly that it might not be enough to. "Ignore Danzo," she said sharply, re-establishing all the torn connections in his eye. "Do not trust a word he spoke to you. He's a foul excuse of a man that was obsessed with power. Believe in your ability and believe in Konoha. We cannot have another war break out." He paused for a minute. "Who are you really? You're far too young to know all of this. The less you know, the better." Silence settled in the air once more as Shisui didn't give back a response. Once his eye was fully restored, Sakura gave a pulse of diagnostic chakra into his system, checking for other injuries. 3 chakra signatures suddenly stared closing in on their location and Sakura realized she recognized 2 of them. This was not good. Pulling back her hand, she rose to her feet. "Go to the hospital, Shisui-san. You have multiple broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and your left lung is about to collapse. Can't heal me yourself? Unfortunately, my stay is long overdue," she said easily, stepping back from him. "Take care, and remember your duty to our village." Imagining the Hiraishin seal in her room, Sakura let the tug of chakra pull her out of the forest and she disappeared in a crack. Sarutobi Hiruzen was having a very strange day. The morning started out relatively normal with all his paperwork laid out on the table, unmoving no matter how many he went through within the hour. He had a nice talk with Sun, conversing the various pros and cons of utilizing a village-wide barrier, and changing up the rotation movement on the borders. His day began to turn sour, however, as the sun began to set and an Anbu flashed into the room. The white hair and wolf mask gave him away as Minato's last reaming student. "What is it?" "Danzo is dead, Hokage-sama." He immediately froze, eyes wide, 100 different scenarios going through his mind. "Details," he demanded. "When? How?" "A disturbance was found near the Naka River Temple. After investigation, we can conclude there was a brief fight between Danzo and Uchiha Shisui. A third party was also present, but the scent was covered rather well. As of now, identity is unknown. Danzo's trace, however, remains and died at the temple while Uchiha and the unknown third party traces towards the compound forest." Sarutobi paled. He knew things have been rough between Danzo and the Uchiha, but surely murder wouldn't be his answer. He had talked to the boy just yesterday. "Anything else?" "I checked for Root's involvement, but they've completely gone underground. Danzo's office is overturned. All his seals are broken and every confidential mission is laid out around the room. He rose to his feet. Impossible. I want you to take Bear and Panther and track down Uchiha Shisui in the forest. I want him in my office when I get back. Hi. Without need for another word, he flashed out of the office, heading straight towards Danzo's building. Just what on earth was going on? Shisui thought he had seen enough surprises in his life. Apparently he was very, very wrong. The Anbu disappeared without a trace. Completely. When normal shinobi executed the Shunshin, there was always a trail of movement that followed after. Even thought it was impossible to see with your eyes, it was still there. But this wasn't fast movement. This was true teleportation. Not a figment of the Anbu's movement was left behind, as if they vanished on the spot. Shisui. His head snapped around. He could recognize that voice anywhere. 3 Anbu. Ones he recognized this time, came running forth. Hitaki Kakashi was at the head, Yugo Izuki at his left, and Itachi on his right. Itachi landed first, scanning his rugged appearance and noting the trail of dried blood below his right eye. You are to report to the Hokage immediately, Kakashi announced. Can you move? Ma, he grunted, I prefer if I don't have to. My doctor said to take it easy, you know. Ignoring his effort to lighten the mood, Itachi slung his arm around his shoulder and pulled him into the air. He groaned as the movement jostled his broken ribs, already finding it difficult to breathe. Taicho, Shisui needs the hospital, Izuki said, undoubtedly glaring behind the mask. I'll be fine, he waved a hand, just watch my, ouch. Itachi, watch my ribs. Kakashi sighed. After a moment of settling, the 4 Anbu started their trek back to the Hokage tower. Every jump rubbed at Shisui's ribs, but he kept silent, the only evidence of his pain being the pale tone of his skin. At last, they made it back to the center of the village, flashing in through the windows in a typical Anbu fashion. Sarutobi was already waiting, standing in front of his desk with an inscrutable expression. Shisui, I need your report, he said seriously, looking as if he had aged 50 more years within the span of an hour. Hokage-sama, he grunted, leaning onto Itachi's shoulder. Near sunset, I was approached by Danzo regarding my plans for the clan. He claimed that even with my interference, the old bitterness would never wash away, and the only way to save Konoha was for complete extermination. He asked if I was going to put him under the genjutsu as well, lamenting about the fact that my eyes were not being used to their proper potential. He then attempted to steal my eyes, and revealed under the bandages that he already had a Sharingan of his own. He activated one of our forbidden jutsus to forcibly steal my right eye. All eyes suddenly flickered to his face, and was about to steal the other when I was caught at the other end of a powerful substitution jutsu. Your right eye was taken? Sarutobi frowned in obvious confusion. In that moment, yes, he nodded firmly. I was transported a street down from Danzo, and I took the opportunity to escape, knowing he would send Rude after me for my remaining eye. I went and hid inside the forest by the Uchiha compound, until I was discovered by an Anbu. Who? He asked immediately. Shisui hesitated. I don't know, Hokage-sama. The mask was devoid of any coloring and the agent couldn't have been older than 10 by physical proportions. The Anbu told me that Danzo was dead, and he was here to help me. He returned my right eye and performed the transplant, leaving without a trace once he sensed Taicho and the rest. The Hokage went very still, and for a moment, nothing was said. I do not have any Anbu in my guard that young. A Root member? He shook his head. He supposedly killed Danzo himself and told me not to mourn his death. And no obvious affect of a henge being used? Not that my eyes could sense. He was as he appeared, undoubtedly young, short nondescript brown hair and a blank white mask. The room suddenly seemed to get colder. This is a very serious matter. An unknown shinobi is on the loose, killed Danzo, whose corpse is yet to be found, completely upturned the ceiling inside his office. We're talking about an S-class shinobi. Is there anything else to consider about this Anbu? Shisui swallowed, finding it harder to breathe every moment. He really needed his left lung checked. Hokage-sama, with all due respect, I don't believe that this person is Konoha's enemy. And where does this confidence come from? He told me that I have a duty to Konoha, to trust in its shinobi and avoid war at all costs. I can't explain it properly, but the feeling I got from this person was not that of an enemy. He killed Danzo. Shisui felt his blood rush with anger. And Danzo nearly killed me in his selfish conquest for power. Sarutobi sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. I understand. Go get checked into the hospital. We will discuss this at a later time. Hi, Hokage-sama. Naruto. A blonde boy turned around at the voice, blue eyes practically gleaming. He ran towards her, waving his head wildly in the air. Sakura-chan, he grinned. You're late. Almost, she countered slyly. Did you wait long? He shook his head. I was practicing climbing the tree like you told me. Noting the multiple scratches and leaves scattered over his hair, she smiled. He was getting better every day. I brought food, come on, sit down. Without complaint, Naruto squatted down next to her on their makeshift picnic blanket, grabbing the bento box with unrestrained glee. Thanks, Sakura-chan. Where's Sasuke today? She asked, glancing around the training ground where she usually met her boys. Naruto shrugged. Dunno. Teme said something about clan business and left early. That's okay though, I get more of Sakura-chan's food. She smiled. If you honestly thought I was going to let you eat ramen every day for the rest of your life, you're sorely mistaken. But ramen is the best. She gave him a look. You need proper nutrients, Naruto. When you become Hokage, how are you going to run Konoha on ramen alone? You've seen how much paperwork is on that desk. Naruto suddenly paled, chopsticks limp in his mouth. You'll, help me with the paperwork, right? She stared unblinkingly. Please? I hate reading. She grinned. You'll have to sacrifice in order to be Hokage. She could have sworn Naruto's eyes began to water with the thought of atrocious paperwork, but a cheek-splitting smile soon overtook his face. I'll just run Konoha as a paperless village. So no paperwork at all, we can save the trees. It was possible. Maybe if all their data could be stored digitally, but Sakura knew the dream was still a far reality. Before she could respond, a familiar voice interrupted their time. Look, it's Forehead Girl. And the freak. There was a round of giggles and 3 girls sauntered towards their training ground, chins high in the air. Sakura wanted to sigh. This was one thing she didn't miss about her childhood. Since her return, Sakura had ignored her bullies, not giving them the satisfaction of getting under her skin. In fact, it was more annoying than hurtful, especially now that she could simply walk away. But the girls had never caught her with Naruto before. One glance at Blonde's suddenly defensive expression and she knew she wasn't going to let this go. Call her names? Fine, but call her future Hokage a freak? That was not okay. Get a life, Amy. The purple-haired girl spluttered slightly, eyes blazing. What was that? Just because you're trying to make yourself look better doesn't make you anything. Are you deaf? She prompted, watching the girl's face turn an ugly shade of red. I said get a life. You obviously need one if this is what you do with your time. You're just a stupid forehead girl. Amy screeched. Of course you'd hang out with this freak since no one else will play with you. A deafening silence filled the air as Sakura froze, her eyes unblinking. A trickle of killing intent slipped past her and by the look of Naruto's face, she knew he felt it. Sakura-chan, it's fine, just. No, she said firmly, getting to her feet. It's not fine. At any other situation, Sakura would never have let such a low taunt raise her temper. But this was for Naruto. She had seen this time around how much he struggled every day to live, to be treated like a normal human being, and anger rose up in the pit of her stomach. No, this wasn't okay. What? Kasumi, one of the girls behind Amy suddenly stuttered. You wanna fight? Amy will beat you down, you know. Sakura wasn't listening, her gaze unwavering at the girl in front. Apologized to Naruto. Now, Amy scoffed. Why? It's not like it isn't true. Everyone says he's a freak and a monster. Take that back, she growled, voice dangerously low. You have no idea what you're talking about. And you're just a loser too. Amy retorted, hand swinging. Look at this giant forehead. Hey, leave Sakura-chan alone. Ami's hand came flying towards her face and Sakura immediately recognized this habit. While being bullied, Amy would often smack her forehead and laugh about how much space was still showing around her hand. Back then, it was the cruelest thing Sakura had ever endured, but now. Her own hand came up with a snap, catching Ami's wrist in a dead lock. The girl faltered. She had to tread carefully. Sakura knew everything she did with Naruto next to her would somehow make its way to the Hokage's ears. Besides, the Anbu guarding Naruto was also watching. Let go of me. she cried, trying to pry her iron grip off. She glared. Apologize. Amy turned red again, anger clouding her eyes. With her other hand tightened into a fist, she swung wildly. Get off me, you stupid. Sakura caught the slow and sloppy fist easily, eyes narrowing. Enough was enough. Feeling the delicate side of Ami's wrist, she forced down a tank of pressure, resulting in a loud crack as her wrist broke. Amy screamed, contorting her body to try and somehow shield herself from the pain. Kasumi and Fuki seemed horrified behind her, faces paling. Apologize to Naruto, she said coldly. I'm sorry. Sakura released both of her hands, causing Amy to crash onto her back and cradle her wrist with tears. Get out of here, she glared at the other two girls. Don't come back unless you have something nice to say. The girls immediately ran, dragging along a sobbing Amy through the training ground. After a moment, the field was silent once more. Sakura-chan? She spun around, hand rubbing the back of her neck as a sheepish grin formed on her face. Sorry about that, Naruto. They aren't very nice, are they? Naruto, who had got to his feet sometime during the confrontation, charged her with a ramming hug, burying his face into her shirt. Sakura immediately obliged, understanding him without words. Thanks, Sakura-chan, he mumbled. I don't know what I did to have you as my friend. Her heart clenched. Naruto. That would be my line. And then, her hand went whoosh and there was a snap and Sakura taught that mean girl a lesson. They ran away and Sakura just stood there, staring off as they ran and, yeah, it was so cool. Naruto concluded, hand waving and all, stopping in a pose. Sarutobi chuckled, watching as Minato's son pulled on an impressively intimidating expression, glaring at invisible bullies. It was the second time hearing the story as the respective Anbu already reported the situation the day before. He had heard about this Sakura since Naruto's first day at the academy. She was the first to befriend him in class, treating him with kindness and attention that Naruto undoubtedly craved his entire life. At first, he had been suspicious of the little girl, as was the way of a shinobi, but after extensive tailing and observation of her, he deduced that she was simply a child from a clanless background who happened to have a heart of gold. She was Naruto's godsend. And then, hugged her really hard because Sakura-chan is so nice, Naruto ended sheepishly, face reddening. I'm glad you had fun, Naruto, he said sincerely. Is she still teaching you things? He perked up, blue eyes ablaze. Yeah, she taught Sasuke Teme and I how to walk on trees and I've been practicing really hard, Gigi. She said it's a skill I need before I become the Hokage. He had of course known already that Naruto was getting pointers and tips from his rosette-haired friend, but the stories were always much more pleasant to hear from his perspective. You said she reads a lot at the library, Naruto nodded, blonde bangs jumping at the moment. She spends so much time in there, Gigi. I don't know why, reading is boring. Reading is important, Naruto, he said gently. You can learn a lot from reading books and scrolls from the past. Besides, when you become Hokage, you'll have to do tons of reading. No, Naruto yelled, putting his hands over his ears. Sakura-chan said she'll help me with the paperwork. Wait, did she? I don't remember. Wait, no. I said I'll make Konoha a paperless village when I'm Hokage, see? No reading needed. Amusement bubbled in his chest as he watched the young boy scrunch in thought. Sorry, Naruto, but unless you revamp the entire shinobi mission system, or we run out of trees, you're stuck with paperwork. He wilted. All right, but since Sakura-chan said she'll be my biggest supporter, I think I can handle the paperwork. Sarutobi smiled. He really did appreciate this girl. Sakura sat cross-legged in the confines of her room, stretching her senses in deep meditation. It was one Kakashi had passed down to her during their time together, which pushed and pulled the limits of her chakra reserves. She never knew her old sensei was born with average chakra levels, especially for a shinobi so dedicated to ninjutsu. He had given her his meditative process that allowed the senses to be used beyond normal capabilities, almost like opening chakra gates. It was an incredibly strenuous ordeal, and by the time she was done, Sakura's system felt like a well in the Suna desert, completely and utterly empty. It could only be done once a week, but results were staring to show from 3 years of constant practice. Panting in exhaustion, Sakura lied on the cold wooden floor, staring at the ceiling above her. It had been a week since she saved Uchiha Shisui's life, and to her utter gratefulness, the clan was still alive. There were no signs that his mass genjutsu over the clan had been completed, but Sakura supposed it had been carried out in a completely classified and secretive manner. Konoha was never going to come forth with the truth of Uchiha's attempted rebellion anyway. She shuddered at the sudden thought, grateful that Shisui's particular eye technique couldn't be used often. It would have been an incredibly dangerous and misuse of power if it stayed in Danzo's hand. No wonder her future had turned out like it did. If Shisui had completed his end of plan like Sakura had requested, saving the Uchiha clan, she needed to move on to the next part of the plan. Akatsuki. Bringing up memories of her conversation with Jiraiya and Obito, Sakura went through the timeline once more in her head, analyzing all the critical points. It was a shame, but Akatsuki was no longer the peace-striving group in aim under the hand of Yahiko. Danzo had played his part before his death, leaving the group in Nagato's hands, who turned it into a biju-hunting criminal organization. Damn him, Danzo was ruining her spirit even in death. Sighing, she concentrated once more. As of now, the main members of Akatsuki were Nagato, Konan, Kakuzu, Sasori, Orochimaru, and Obito. Kisame was still in Kirigakure, and wouldn't become a missing nin for another 2 years, as was Deidara. Hidan was in Yugakure, and only joined Akatsuki after Kakuzu's fourth partner was killed, which wasn't for another 5 years. Itachi would remain in Konoha. Then there was Black Zetsu. She grimaced at the last thought, mind spinning. Kaguya's will, the unexpected mastermind of Akatsuki all along. He had been originally sealed away by Naruto and Sasuke's Chibaku Tensei, but that meant having to wait until Kaguya was unleashed and the infinite Tsukuyomi was implemented. No, she couldn't wait that long. She needed to find another way of sealing the bastard herself. A sudden thought flickered through her mind and she snapped her eyes awake, unable to believe she had nearly forgotten. Uchiha Obito was coming to Konoha. She knew it was the night of the massacre. He had aided Itachi in exchange for the latter to join Akatsuki. Now that the situation was under tight control, what would Obito do? Massacre the clan himself? At this moment, Sakura didn't have Kakashi to snap his teammate out of it, or have Naruto to inspire the long-lost boy once again in protecting Konoha. He was her enemy right now, not the apologetic man she had talked to through Edo Tensei. Biting her thumb, she slammed it down on her wooden floor, pouring out a small leak of chakra left in her system. Kachiyose no Jutsu. Sei and Mika poofed into existence, the latter looking up at her questioningly. So soon, Sakura-chan? Did your intervention no go as planned? She shook her head. I've overlooked something possibly problematic. Uchiha Obito is due for a visit to Konoha soon. I know Itachi will be the one to find him, but now that the coup has settled, we don't know how it'll play out. Every precaution is necessary. The two lizards nodded their small heads. We'll spread the word. The moment he comes in Konoha territory, we'll let you know. She breathed in relief. Thank you both. With another poof, they were gone. With all her chakra spent, Sakura collapsed back onto the floor, not bothering to climb onto her bed, and closed her eyes, allowing sleep to take her. When a second week went by, Obito finally made his appearance. Well into the night, a surge of chakra jolted Sakura awake as she turned to see Sei appear on her nightstand. He's here, the lizard said quietly, minding her guest. Just past the Konoha borders and heading towards the Uchiha compound. Cursing under her breath, Sakura slipped out of bed, careful not to wake the blonde-haired boy who was snoring away on the other side of the bed. Out of all the days Sakura invited him to a sleepover, Obito had to come tonight. With a single hand seal, a clone flickered into existence. Quickly reaching into her drawer and pulling out a familiar scroll, she gave it a swipe of her blood and chakra, unsealing her Anbu uniform. How fast is he moving? She asked, slipping on every piece in a mechanical speed of practice. He doesn't appear to be in any hurry. He's moving very cautiously. A small sense of relief rushed through her chest as her clone popped open a jar of powdery hair dye, smearing it all over her locks. Thank God her hair had been cut boyishly short. After a few more seconds of silent movement, Sakura stood in her gear, holding out her hand for Sei to climb. She looked towards her clone. Take care of Naruto. Of course. Nodding in satisfaction as the clone slipped back under the blanket, Sakura glanced at Sei's perch on her shoulder, receiving a nod in return. Focusing on Mika's seal, Sakura flashed out of the room. She landed softly onto the forest soil, immediately cloaking her chakra and heartbeat. Mika jumped from his position on the trunk of a tree, amber eyes blinking at her. 50 meters west, Sakura-chan. He'll reach the outskirts of the Uchiha compound in less than 5 minutes. She exhaled. Thank you. Stay safe, he muttered, before both lizards poofed out of existence. Making no more room for hesitation, Sakura bounded westward, concealing all noise with chakra. Not 3 minutes later, a kunai came flying straight at her face. She dodged, bringing out her own kunai as a large figure appeared in front of her, sword in hand. Metal clashed loudly as Sakura pumped chakra into her blade for extra strength. She knew with this body and age, there was no way she could hold him off on sheer physical power. Your ability to hide your presence is far better than what I've seen in other Konoha Anbu. I'll praise you for that, Obito said through his mask, voice muffled and low. Even your chakra's signature and indecipherable. But you underestimate me, coming on your own. Metal ricocheted off each other as both jumped back after the third blow, landing on opposite sides of the forest. They were so close to the Uchiha compound, Sakura wondered if the brief fight was sensed. Why are you here? She asked, already knowing part of the truth. But this was a different timeline and different circumstances. She couldn't take the chance. She had promised that much at least. That, he answered, drawing out the word, is none of your concern, seeing as you will be dead. My time here is not for you. Sakura braced herself, her sharp mind flowing through dozens of different outcomes. She knew the ins and outs of Obito's techniques. He had told her himself, but that didn't make him any less dangerous at this moment. Possible harm to Konoha concerns me at all levels, she replied evenly. And you are it. She dashed at him, kunai raised to strike him blow for blow. Much as she was expecting, her arm and entire body sailed straight through him. Listen. Obito's eyes sharpened, the black sclera of Edo Tensei making his gaze intimidating. My intangibility and teleportation cannot be used at the same time. Especially during the early years of Akatsuki, it will be the technique I heavily rely on. The moment I attack, I have to be solid. That is when you can stop me. That, Sakura, is where you can exploit my weakness. She gritted her teeth, knowing the outcome already. She needed the physical contact, and there was no way she could outspeed him at her current skill like Naruto's father had done. She had to sacrifice an injury. His sword came swinging in from behind her, driving straight towards her heart. Instead of dodging, Sakura tilted ever so slightly, reaching out with her hand. His sword plunged into her side, its hilt embedding itself against her skin. In the same moment, her hand grabbed his wrist, sending a seal to mark his hand. A large black symbol bloomed under her touch, and Obito immediately yanked his arm back, taking the sword with it. Blood split from her wound like a faucet, and she immediately sent chakra to heal the hole. Both shinobi staggered backwards, Sakura nearly losing footing from the immense pain. She couldn't breathe properly. Sealing, Obito hissed, staring at the mark. It was a small black circle with a spiral in the center, equally split in half by a thick line passing vertically through it. It was a seal that embodied her team. The outer circle represented her clan, the spiral for Naruto, and the line for Sasuke. Kakashi had been the one to draw it out. Surprise, she gritted through her teeth, smiling behind the mask even though he couldn't see it. She flashed towards him, feeling the tug of the seal. Obviously cautious about what the seal did, Obito moved on the defensive. They traded blow for blow, and the trees around them began to bend with the sheer amount of chakra in the air. At her eighth attack, Sakura called chakra to her left fist, feinting with her right. As his sword lashed out in an attempt to bisect her at the weight, Sakura vanished, reappearing above his head. He was an extremely fast reactor, but not quite enough. Her fist pummeled into his left shoulder, undoubtedly tearing it out of its socket and fracturing the bone. Obito staggered and teleported away with Kamui, appeared a dozen meters behind her. Here Ishin, he spat, obviously recognizing the technique. For a brat like you to learn the Yondaime's signature move, I'll admit it's impressive, but it's not enough. Of course it's impressive. All of you guys helped me perfect it. He swung at her, a barrage of different weapons flying out from his sleeve, undoubtedly from his Kamui dimension, and she flashed away, landing 100 feet back. There was a flicker and Obito appeared behind her back, sword swinging down with incredible speed. She flashed away again, but he followed just as easily. Sakura led him on a chase, countering when she could and dodging when impossible. She knew she couldn't continue this forever. Her chakra was draining, and her smaller body simply couldn't keep up with his fully developed one. Before she could flicker away again, her injury tore open at the sharp moment, and she faltered, her left knee hitting the thick branch she stood on. This was very bad. The glittering metal of his sword came flying down, and before it could strike her, a clash echoed in her ears as two swords collided. Shocked, her eyes darted left, seeing none other than Uchiha Itachi parrying Obito's blow, Sharingan blazing. She hadn't even sensed him coming. Either she was really disoriented, or Itachi was that good. She concluded it was a mix of both. Obito leapt back to create distance between them, lowering his sword. "Uchiha Itachi," he drawled. "I should have expected. Do you know who I am?" For a while, he said nothing, opting to observe. "You claim to be Uchiha Madara." If she didn't know better, Sakura would have agreed. Obito had grown his hair out so it resembled his ancestors, and a Sharingan spun behind the open hole of his flaming mask. "I am Uchiha Madara," he said firmly, and Sakura wondered how many times he had practiced saying that. "From this Konoha that turned their backs on me. One I will surely destroy using the unrest of my forsaken clan." Itachi stiffened. The coup has been neutralized. There will be no conflict. Clearly not having known that news, the elder Uchiha froze. "A deep shame," Obito said. "This village is wasting away with the clan." "Changes are in order," Itachi said with confidence. "We will all protect Konoha as one." After another silent moment, Obito seemed to retreat. It wasn't wise to try and take on an entire village, even if he was incredibly powerful. So quickly to forget the hatred of 8 years ago. Very well, but this is far from the end. Remember that little Uchiha. There will always be war on the horizon. With a distorted swirl of his left Sharingan, Obito vanished with his Kamui. Sakura released a bated breath, having taken their brief conversation to clot her injury once more. She looked up, finding Itachi's eyes on her. She quickly stared at the point between his eyes. There was no way she was going to get into a conflict with Itachi and come out alive, especially in her state. He might not have activated his Mangekyo Sharingan due to Shisui's continued existence, but it didn't make him any less formidable. "You are the Anbu that saved Shisui's life," Itachi said at last. His kunai was still clutched in hand, and his body was tense, ready to move if necessary. She collected her thoughts. "Life is an overestimation, Itachi-san. I merely returned what was originally his." "Who are you?" "A shinobi of Konoha," she said earnestly. "That much I can tell you. Thank you for helping me." He went silent for another moment before responding. "There is a warrant for your capture. Hokage-sama would like to see you." Of course there was. She didn't expect to murder a high councilman and get away with it easily. She had to leave, now. "I'm afraid I cannot follow you," she replied softly. Suddenly, both shinobi moved, their forms bolting to life. Itachi's hand lashed out to grab her, and she felt the familiar tug of chakra as she focused on the seal in her room. Right before his hand was about to reach her, Sakura flashed out of the forest. She landed incoordinated ly in her room, the injury still burning in her chest. She was breathing harshly, one lung unable to completely do its job. Her clone immediately woke up at the noise, sliding out from the bed. Wordlessly, she dispelled herself, and Sakura felt the unused chakra emerge back in her system with relief. Grabbing the storage scroll, she trudged herself over to the bathroom, needing a sincere wash from all the blood that had drained from her. She was definitely going to skip out on academy tomorrow, that was for sure. There was something to be said when Itachi came home from a mission 2 years ago to find Sasuke absent. Which never happened. His little brother, without fail, would always be at home waiting for his return, eager to ask for training. No matter how many times Itachi had denied him, he continued to press the matter. "Itachi, you're back." He turned to face his mother, nodding in greeting. "Where's Sasuke?" Her expression changed into one of amusement and Itachi nearly frowned. Probably out training. She was baiting him, and he knew it. Giving in to her demands, he asked, "Alone?" Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Ah, you weren't here to see it, but 2 weeks ago, Sasuke was carried home unconscious on the back of a little girl." Something in his stomach immediately tightened at the thought. "Nothing bad, Itachi," Makoto said with a little too much glee. Sasuke had simply worn himself out to exhaustion while fighting her. They apparently made a bet that if he won, she would acknowledge that he was better than her, and if she won, Sasuke would have to train with them. Itachi processed his mother's words in his mind, recalling that Sasuke had just started the academy 6 months ago. There was surprise in this thought as he had assumed Sasuke to be the best in his class. Who are they? Her name is Haruno Sakura, and her friend, Uzumaki Naruto. The girl's name did nothing to spark recognition in his mind, but the latter was a name that all Anbu knew. The Kyuubi container. She defeated Sasuke? He wondered out loud. Makoto smiled. Fair and square. You should have seen your brother when he woke up the next morning. He went out training declaring that he was never going to be defeated by pink-haired girls ever again. He's been training with them every day after the academy gets out. His lips tugged up into a small smile. Where? Training ground 3. Why don't you go pick him up for dinner, Itachi? It was already on his mind. Heading to his room, he removed his mission pack and changed into a clean set of clothes for the day, curiosity tingling his mind as he moved mechanically. As he bid a temporary farewell to his mother, Itachi leapt to the roofs, heading towards training ground 3. Within minutes, he neared the river that flowed through the field and landed softly on top of the water. With silent steps, he made his way towards the open area, already hearing voices pierce the air, his brothers being one of them. Get him, Sakura-chan. Sasuke teme you'll lose. A grunt. Shut up, Dobi. Do I need to beat your face down again? Hey, you were lucky. I can totally beat you tomorrow. Itachi peered from the end of river, partially covered by the surrounding trees. Uzumaki Naruto sat cross-legged at the base of a large tree, wildly moving his hands and shouting cheers to the two people currently sparring in the middle of the field. His eyes moved to Sasuke first, surprised to find the boy sweating deeply, looking disheveled and dirty with scrapes all over his skin. His sparring partner, however, looked completely unfazed. As his mother had said, the girl had a head of bright coral hair that was cut shortly, even shorter than Sasuke's. Her green eyes were focused on the opponent before her, but her lips were twisted into a grin. She moved fluidly, much more gracefully than his own little brother, stepping around Sasuke's attacks and countering like a dance. She was good. He could understand how Sasuke had lost. Ah, who are you? He turned his head at Naruto's voice, catching the attention of the other two in the field. Sasuke's eyes brightened, halting his steps. Aniki. The girl on the other hand had no reclusions to stopping and swung her leg in a perfectly executed sweep, knocking Sasuke onto his back with a surprised grunt. Sakura, you cheater. I was distracted. She grinned, chest rising with adrenaline. A shinobi must make use of every opportunity, you know? It's not my fault you have the attention span of a spoon. Itachi's lips threatened to quirk up, but he held back his amusement. She's right, Sasuke. Accept your loss gracefully. He whined pitifully before getting to his feet. Why are you here, Aniki? Ka-san said to bring you before you forget about dinner, he replied easily. I wasn't going to forget, he protested. I was just about to beat Sakura. Yeah right, Teme. Naruto yelled, now on his feet as well. Before Sasuke could make his furious retort, Itachi cut in. He had never seen his brother so riled up before. Sasuke, why don't you introduce me to your friends? His scowl didn't lessen as he jabbed a thumb towards Naruto. That's the Dobi, Naruto. And that's Sakura. They're my classmates. Dobi, Sakura, this is my Aniki, Itachi. Naruto shouted a loud, hey, in response while Sakura just sighed, rubbing her forehead. Unable to bite back his smile, he ruffled the dirt out of Sasuke's hair. I'm glad you found good friends, Sasuke. His immediately went beet red at the word, knowing it was something Sasuke never used. Itachi knew his little brother. Knew that he had no friends his age outside of the clan. But it looks like his friends had found him. It's nice to meet you, Itachi-san, Sakura said, a warm smile on her face. Forgive me for beating your brother into the ground. He had it coming. Sakura, Sasuke yelled, face still red. She laughed. I only speak the truth, Sasuke-chan, now come here. Sasuke looked as if he was going to protest, but after a resigned sigh, he walked towards the girl, sticking out his left arm. Itachi watched with surprise as Sakura placed her palm over a scrape on his forearm, hand glowing green. After a moment of concentration, the injury lessened. It was apparently a well-practiced habit of theirs as Sasuke wordlessly presented injury after injury, and Sakura healed them away. He could tell her technique wasn't perfect by any means, but it was an impressive start for a child her age. A new sense of curiosity formed in his mind as he watched her work efficiently, no hesitation in her movements. He knew the art of healing was a difficult and strenuous practice that required near-perfect chakra control. "Sakura-san, where did you learn how to heal like that?" She jolted out of concentrated, eyes suddenly wide. After a moment, she grinned sheepishly. My Ka-san taught me when I told her I wanted to be a medic nen. I'm not as good as her yet, but I can fix small scrapes. Yeah, 'cause she's been practicing a lot on Teme and me," Naruto said cheerily. Itachi processed her words, imprinting them in his memory. "You don't come from a shinobi clan, do you?" She shook her head. "My Ka-san is a medic in the hospital, and my Tu-san is a civilian." Interesting. Once Sakura was done healing him, Sasuke grunted, muttering a "thank you" under his breath, as he pulled his shirt back on. "Ready to go?" he asked. Sasuke nodded, jumping to his side. He turned back to his classmates, a small smile on his face. "See you tomorrow, Sasuke." Sakura waved, taking the words from his mouth. "Yeah, Teme," Naruto cut in, arms crossed. "I'll beat you tomorrow, you hear?" His smile turned into a smirk as he looked towards the blonde. "Yeah, right. Bye, Dobi. Go do your homework." Naruto's shouts of protests echoed through the field as Itachi walked his little brother back towards the compound, glancing at his smile that stayed on his face all the way back home. Sakura stared at the large memorial stone in front of her, feeling the gentle caress of the breeze trail against her skin. It was a rare moment of alone time as neither Naruto nor Sasuke were with her. Naruto was off eating ramen with Iruka-sensei, a connection she did not want to step between by being there, and Sasuke was off with his clan, attending their monthly meetings. The Uchiha clan was still alive. 2 years after saving Uchiha Shisui, Sakura allowed herself a moment of self-praise, understanding that she had successfully diverted the massacre. As Itachi had said, changes had been made between the villages and the clan. The Uchihas were no longer forced to live in a certain sector of the village of their compound for surveillance, and many of the lesser members spread throughout Konoha. The military police force was unofficially disbanded, giving more missions to Uchiha shinobi, and allowing them true access to climb the ranks. Sakura hadn't realized how restricted the Uchiha clan was until their limits began to lift. It was no wonder Fugaku and the rest of the elders were easily poisoned into planning rebellion. So far, Shisui's genjutsu had done wonders. He quite literally saved his entire clan. And now that the Hokage knew with absolute conviction that the Uchiha's first priority was Konoha, a sense of peace was returning to the village once again. It was a vile situation when Sakura continued to think about it, but she couldn't do much about it anymore. She had a choice between Konoha and the Uchiha clan, and her choice was clear, no matter the outcome. Yet, while peace was returning to Konoha, Akatsuki was moving in the shadows. She gritted her teeth. She was still developing a seal that could lock away Zetsu, but it was a tedious and difficult process. But once Zetsu was out of the way, Kaguya's revival would be put to a halt. Next was Madara. According to Obito, he was truly dead at the moment but would be resurrected at the time the Ten Tails was revived. She couldn't have this either, meaning, Kabuto had to be killed as soon as possible. She narrowed her eyes at the thought of Orochimaru's right hand, wondering what he was doing at the moment. She had never seen him around in the streets of Konoha, but the man was a slippery bastard to start with. She needed to take him out early. None of the other Akatsuki members were a large threat at the moment other than Orochimaru. His possible invasion of Konoha was only 2 years away and Sakura was itching to figure out his method. Otogakure was Orochimaru's main force along with Suna, but the village was founded after his defection from Akatsuki. Had he left yet? Was he still planning his invasion? She exhaled, focusing on the memorial stone once more. Her fingers traced invisible names that were not yet carved into the stone, inwardly swearing that if her time here meant anything at all, none of the names she remembered would be placed there. She spotted the name of Uchiha Obito next to the many that died during the Third War, and traced over his name in careful strokes. She had promised him too. The following week, Orochimaru's answer came to her. Sakura was in the process of a strenuous warm-up with Naruto, who was complaining about all the silly little countries they had to memorize for tomorrow's test. Stretching out her leg muscles, she reached forward and sent a pulse of chakra to her seal weights, increasing their mass. A loud rustle of noise came from her right and Sakura glanced up to see Sasuke burst from the trees. Her greeting died in her throat as she saw his panicked expression. "Sasuke? What happened?" Her tone immediately alerted Naruto, who was in the middle of doing a backstretch, and promptly fell over trying to see Sasuke. He was breathing rapidly. Aniki just came back. He's really badly injured and they said they don't know if Shisui will live either. What? Naruto harped, getting to his feet. To Sakura's shock, Sasuke looked as if he was close to crying. Never in this timeline for as long as she's known him had she seen such a vulnerable expression on his face. Without the massacre, this was his first experience with the idea of death to those near to him. He looked close to hyperventilating. "Breathe, Sasuke," she commanded firmly, taking both his hands. "Inhale, exhale." When his panic attack seemed to even out, Sasuke tried to school his features. "Ka-san said to stay home, but what do I do?" The 10-year-old boy took in a huge breath, undoubtedly holding back a mountain of tears. Itachi meant that much to him. "Let's go see him," Sakura said without hesitation. "We can wait in the hospital." He looked wary, but Ka-san said to stay. "Do you not want to see your brother?" she asked. "I'm sure Itachi-san would get better faster if he knew you were waiting for him." Sakura knew that Sasuke was a clan child through and through. He probably never went against his parents' orders so blatantly, they'd have his head. This was the ultimate decision. His parents, or Itachi? At last, Sasuke nodded. "I want to go see him." She smiled. "Let's go." "Nay, Sasuke, didn't you say that your brother was super strong?" Naruto asked, walking next to him. "Hospitals can't hold him down." His dark eyes softened a fraction as he nodded, and Sakura felt something warm fill her chest. This is what Team 7 should have lived up to be. Sakura led the two towards the largest square building in the center of the village, walking through the double doors. Sasuke's steps seemed to stiffen considerably, and Naruto just looked around the place in awe. Walking straight up to the front desk, she placed both hands over the counter. The lady there seemed surprised for a moment before giving the three of them an odd stare. Without their Hite-8, they just looked like normal civilian children without their parents. "Can I help you? We're looking for Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Shisui's rooms. We want to visit," she said firmly. She flipped through her papers before answering. "I'm afraid not. Only family at this moment." "Itachi is my brother," Sasuke said defiantly, glaring at the lady. He flashed the clan symbol on his shirt. "And they're with me. Where is he?" Looking thoroughly startled, she stammered out the room numbers. Sakura wasted no more time with the desk lady and headed deeper into the building with Naruto and Sasuke right behind her. They climbed up to the topmost floor where Sakura knew the hospital kept all their emergency shinobi patients, and walked towards a nondescript white door near the middle of the hallway, noting that Shisui was a room down. Sasuke took a sharp breath from behind her as she gripped the door and slid it open. The room was slightly darkened with the curtains closed, but Sakura could clearly see Sasuke's parents rising to their feet in surprise. "Sakura-chan? Sasuke?" She frowned. "I told you to stay home, why are you here?" "I wanted to see Aniki too," he defended, clenching his fists. "I couldn't just stay home." Fugaku looked disappointed. "Sasuke, I will not accept such disobedience. It was my idea, Uchiha-san," she said, taking a small step in front of Sasuke. "The blame is not Sasuke's to bear." Fugaku looked as if he wanted to give a nasty retort when Makoto just sighed, raising her hands in a sign of peace. "It's okay, Sakura-chan. No one is to blame," she said, and then turned to Sasuke. "I just didn't want you to see your brother like this. I thought it would be better for you to see him when he wakes up." "When will he?" he blurted. "The nurse said he should be awake in a few days, Sasuke," she replied, gently taking her son in her arms. "He just got out of a long surgery." Sasuke nodded glumly, letting Makoto hug him. "What about Shisui?" Both adults stiffened ever so slightly. Fugaku continued to glare at the wall as if did him some personal offense, and Makoto sighed once more. "We still don't know. Shisui's in a coma right now and no one knows if he'll be able to wake up. He was in a bad state when he got here." Sasuke didn't respond, and Sakura took this as her cue to take her leave. She was invading a personal family moment no matter how much Makoto seemed to like her. "Naruto and I will head out," she said softly, taking the blonde hand. He had been uncharacteristically silent the entire time. "I hope Itachi-san wakes up and recovers soon." "Thank you, Sakura-chan, and Naruto-chan," Makoto smiled warmly. "Take care of yourselves." Nodding once more, Sakura led him out of the room, and quietly slid the door shut behind her. "You've been so quiet, Naruto," she said, giving him an odd look. "Are you all right?" This was probably his first experience with death too, even if it was through Sasuke's family. He grumbled, "Nothing. I was just thinking about how many strong people are outside of Konoha, to be able to do this to Sasuke Tomi's brother. That was unexpected. Does it scare you?" He clenched his fist before thumping it on his chest. "No way, Sakura-chan. I'm gonna get super strong too, I promised. I gotta be Hokage and protect Konoha." She ruffled his hair. "I have no doubt that you will. Now come on. I want to make one more stop before we leave." Where?" Sakura walked down a room to where Shisui was supposed to be, placing a hand on the door. She sent out a wave of chakra to make sure no one but Shisui was in the room. Satisfied that it was empty, she grabbed the door and entered. "We're visiting Sasuke's cousin?" Naruto asked. "Just for a second," she said carefully. "I just want to see if he's okay too. He's also important to Sasuke." Naruto grunted. Sakura waked over to the bed where Shisui lay, his face a picture of perfect calm. His skin was paler than usual, and she was itching to lay a diagnostic jutsu on him. She knew that before Tsunade came and revamped the entire hospital, many of the medics were poorly trained. Could she try? She was finally acquainted with Shisui via Sasuke and Itachi, and although she wasn't monumentally close to him, she still cared a great deal about the man she first saved. Inwardly shaking her head, she squashed down the urge. "Not with Naruto in the room. He looks sorta sad," Naruto commented. Sakura's right hand slid underneath the edge of the hospital bed, and she marked the metal with a small Hirishin seal. "Yeah," she muttered, discreetly putting her hand down. "Come on, shall we go?" Naruto nodded, looking more than eager to get out of the gloomy hospital. She would wait it out just in case. 4 days later, Itachi had woken up and was beginning his road to recovery. Sasuke had been bursting with relief and happiness. Sakura thought he smiled more that day than he had in the past year. Shisui remained the same. When another 2 weeks passed and there was no change in Shisui's condition, Sasuke's mood began to slowly dip. Apparently, Itachi was starting to grow extremely withdrawn with every day that passed, and Sasuke was feeling the brunt of it. When the month passed, Sakura had enough waiting. She couldn't put it behind her when it was possibly in her capabilities to do something. As the moon waned in the dead of night, Sakura unsealed her Anbu uniform and prepared to leave, making sure all her supplies were secured before heading out. She hadn't used the particular disguise often, but she had no doubt the order for her capture was still in place. Taking a deep breath in preparation, Sakura focused on the seal in the hospital and flashed away. She landed in the hospital room without a sound, immediately regretting the decision. Someone was already by the bed, spinning around with a kunai in hand, eyes shining red. Mangekyo read. Sakura cursed. Out of all the days she could have done this, she managed to run into him. Besides, it was nearly 3 in the morning. Why the hell was Itachi still here? It's then she realizes that his Mangekyo must have awakened from Shisui's accident. "Itachi-san," she murmured carefully, lacing her voice with chakra. "I was waiting," he replied. Confusion ran through her before she caught on, unable to believe him for a moment. But there was no other explanation. "You found my seal," she stated, blinking in disbelief. The Sharingan was able to see and discern chakra patterns, including the small amount in her Hirishin seal. He was with her when she marked Obito's hand 2 years back, and undoubtedly traced it back to her. "Damn, he was good." "Yes," he confirmed. "I admit, I wasn't sure of its properties, but I knew it was yours." "Are you here to stop me?" He seemed to hesitate. "That depends on what you intend to do. I find myself unable to stand back and watch when I am capable of doing something," she said honestly. "Wouldn't you agree?" Silence filled the room. He lowered his kunai. "Will you help him?" "I will," she said with unwavering conviction. "Will you trust me?" He made no hesitation in his response. "I will." Relief flooded through her system as his stance relaxed. He walked around to Shisui's other side, allowing her the space to work. Cautiously she approached, pressing a glowing green hand on his chest. "Can you tell me what happened? I don't need the mission details, but I do need circumstances of his injuries." His expression seemed to darken as he recalled the memory. "We were returning from our mission when we were ambushed by Orochimaru." Sakura froze, raising her face to meet his. Thankfully, his Sharingan was off. "Our team was already strained and he took advantage of that quite thoroughly, separating us with his 3 other shinobi. Shisui received unknown injuries from his opponent but came to aid me against Orochimaru. He took an attack that was meant to be my own, which cut through his chest with an unknown black liquid. The bleeding did not stop the entire return, and Shisui said he could not feel or move his body before losing consciousness." Sakura flickered her eyes to Shisui's forehead, pressing her hand against it. Immediately, she felt the sluggish strain of her chakra trying to move through. "Poisoned," she immediately said. No wonder he wasn't waking up. She felt a trickle of worry stab her heart when she realized the sheer amount of it in his brain. Surely, the medics have felt it, but either they couldn't diagnose it correctly, or they didn't dare try an extraction. The brain was an extremely delicate area to heal. She exhaled. Tsunade wouldn't let this stop her, and Sakura had sworn an oath to the woman when she asked for training. She wouldn't give up either. "Itachi-san," she said hurriedly. "Please get me a large bowl with water. You should find an empty one in the bathroom behind me." He moved without reply, and Sakura focused on separating the toxins in his brain. Thankfully, it wasn't a deadly one, but one that caused paralysis over time to keep everything shut down. She grimaced, realizing that it was the perfect method for what Orochimaru needed. In order to take over Itachi's body, a deadly poison was pointless to use. He needed the body alive, but incapacitated. A tiny incision was made with her chakra scalpel, and she began to extract the poison from his skin. Itachi placed a wide bowl on the stand next to her, quickly moving back to his original position. The poison was putridly black and thick as it was pulled from his face and into her chakra-laced hands, floating in between. She dumped the offending liquid into the bowl, returning for another round. Again and again she extracted everything she could possibly reach, every movement and fluctuation of chakra carefully measured and calculated. One mistake meant Shisui's brain being ruined forever. It made sense why no sane medic attempted to try it. When all the poison had been removed, Sakura forced open the flimsy hospital garment, exposing Shisui's chest. There was an ugly scar that marred his skin from left shoulder to hip, and Sakura nearly stopped to scowl at it. She would never have left it to scar like this. Widespread scarring meant lack of feeling, and that equaled to disadvantages for the shinobi during combat. Reaching into her hip bag, she pulled out a scroll, smearing chakra and blood to open the seal. A small palette of ink and a brush fell into her hand, and she snapped the compact shut after swathing a few strokes of black ink. Steadying her hand, she began to draw the seals needed, sticking to the uninjured side of his chest. She then drew over both arms and up his neck, forcing the seals to meet at the point on his forehead. Satisfied with her work, she placed the brush down, flying through a set of hand seals. Chikatsu Saisei no Jutsu. Shisui's entire body began to glow a magnificent green, the black ink of her seals glowing white. With careful and strenuous effort, she forced the damage to heal, coercing his body's natural cells as a medium. The jutsu was normally done with a rotation of 4 people due to the long hours required to preform the skill, but she had stabilized the technique to suit her one-man stand. Sakura momentarily recalled Neji being treated with it during their genin days, and her resolve strengthened. She would save him. When what seemed like an hour drew by, a soft groan escaped from Shisui's lips and Sakura felt her chakra redouble in will. Itachi jolted slightly, turning to look at his friend. "Shisui." "Not yet, Itachi-san," she spoke through her teeth, feeling the unbelievable strain on her chakra. Half of her written seals have yet to disappear. She pressed for another hour, circulating her chakra through his system at every loop, filling in all his injuries that the poison had damaged over the month. She had no resources to make a proper antidote, so the only other option was to neutralize the stubborn remains. When the last of her seals merged and disappeared to the point on his forehead, Sakura released the jutsu, about to fall on her knees. The morning sun was breaking over the horizon, slightly illuminating the room. She knew she didn't have a lot of time. The first hospital round came at 6 in the morning, and if she guessed, she didn't even have 20 minutes left. Sakura momentarily spread out her chakra, unable to sense more than the topmost floor in her current state. No one else. Yet, Shisui's face suddenly scrunched as another guttural noise passed his lips. To her amazement, his eyes pulled back. Itachi? He croaked. The Uchiha nodded, his eyes wide and more expressive than Sakura had ever seen them. Shisui grunted again, undoubtedly disoriented from the month-long coma. What happened? Did Orochi? No mission reporting Shisui-san, she interrupted, voice cracking. She needed to get out of here. I command you to bed rest for the next 3 days. He clearly didn't realize that she was there, as his black eyes flickered slowly over to her, shocked. He trailed off, blinking as if in a daze. Am I dreaming? You might be slightly delirious, she admitted. Being in a month-long coma does that to you. Now please go back to sleep. His eyes widened, about to ask, as she pressed 2 fingers to his temple. He went out like a light. It was a useful technique Tsunade had taught her for dealing with stubborn patients, but only worked if their chakra levels were low. He'll wake up again in a few hours, she said, pulling back her shaking hand. Kami, she was going to collapse any second. The medics here will bring him back to health if they're not too incompetent. I will take my leave. Thank you, Itachi blurted, his gaze extremely intense. Thank you for saving him. Again, you saved me long ago, Itachi-san, and I do not forget to repay those who give to me, she replied. Though, I do have one question. He waited. During your confrontation, was Orochimaru wearing a black cloak with red clouds on it? Obviously not having expected such a particular question, he blinked. No, she nodded, feeling for the Hiraishin seal in her room. That is all then. Thank you. In a snap, she vanished from the hospital. Sakura-chan. Sakura-chan. Dobi, shut up. She's probably sick. Sakura threw open her door with a bang, finding 2 boys in the middle of a brawl lose their balance and fall into her doorway. Sasuke's elbow collided with Naruto's stomach, causing him to jerk his knee and smack Sasuke in the back. The dark-haired boy grunted, rolling forward and crashing into her. Sakura didn't bother to stop the fall. The 3 of them fell into a mess of limbs onto her carpeted floor. Look what you've done, Sasuke Teme. Get off her. You're going to suffocate her. Limbs untangled themselves, and Sakura felt a large weight lift off. I've done? You're the idiot who need me. And do you even know what suffocate means? Yes, ow. Sakura banged her fist down onto their heads, receiving a mirrored cry from Sasuke. She crossed her arms, still annoyed from being woken up to loud banging on her door. What on earth are you 2 doing here? She demanded. Both boys momentarily wilted, grabbing their heads. After a tense moment, Sasuke muttered, Naruto started it. Hey, I did not, you tem. Thwack. No shouting, she said sternly, pulling back her fists. I want to know why you've woken me up at such an ungodly hour. Naruto gave her a confused look. But Sakura-chan, it's almost dinner time. You weren't at the academy today, so I thought you were sick. Memories came flooding back to her mind like a tsunami, and Sakura nearly groaned out loud. She had barely cleaned herself up and collapsed in bed when the sun rose, completely devoid of chakra. It was actually a miracle Naruto managed to wake her up at all. Oh right, she grumbled. Sorry, you're right. I kind of took a rest day today, but I feel better now, so no worries. Naruto looked satisfied. And you'll never guess. Sasuke Tami's cousin woke up this morning. It was apparently some big miracle. Dobi, Sasuke hissed. He's my cousin, I should be the one to tell the news. Really? She inquired, genuinely happy? That's great, Sasuke. Did you go see him? Not yet. I was going to go today, but Naruto said to follow him to your house. Did not. Naruto protested. You were the one who wanted to come along to see Sakura-chan. All right, enough, she sighed exasperatedly, smiling. Let's all go now, shall we? Yes. Naruto pumped a fist into the air. Sakura ran up the stairs to her room, rummaging for a change of clothes. After a second of searching, she pulled on a comfortable kimono shirt and a pair of gray lounge pants. She scanned her chakra as she walked back down, estimating that she had recovered nearly half. It was good enough. Naruto and Sasuke led her out of the house as they chattered and argued about what they did at the academy. The sun was low in the sky, and Sakura felt her stomach grumble slightly for food. Hey Naruto, want to stop at Ichiraku's when we go back? His eyes lit up like Christmas had come early. You bet, Sakura-chan. I'll out-eat Sasuke in ramen any day. Who would want to binge on ramen? Sasuke shot back. So you're saying I'm better than you, right? I knew it. What? You're on, Dobi. I don't lose in anything. Sakura sighed again as the two continued to banter on, all the way to Shisui's room. The nurses threw the boys strange looks as they walked through the hospital halls, and she had a temporary urge to smack the two again. Thankfully, they reached Shisui's door without the need for violence, and Sasuke was the first to enter. Aniki, you're here. Itachi glanced up from his chair. Sasuke. Naruto-kun. Sakura-san. She waved cheerily at him, following Naruto's loud greeting. Sheesh, can't catch a break with you three, Shisui grinned. He was sitting up in bed, looking much more alive than she had seen him the before. Sasuke said your recovery was some sort of crazy miracle. Naruto blurted. So, you gotta tell us what happened? Shisui laughed. Dunno, Naruto-kun. I sort of just woke up. I don't think I did anything special myself. His eyes flickered to her, and he grinned. My cute little Sakura-chan. You've come to visit me too. I think I deserve a hug for all my hard work, right? Sasuke rolled his eyes. You literally just said you didn't do anything special yourself. Shisui pouted. You're so not cute, Sasuke, you know that? Good. Being cute is useless. Now, don't say that, Shisui said shewardly. I bet when Sakura-chan gets older, all she'll have to do is smile and the enemy nin will give up right away, Oh, imagine all the boys all have to fight off. Shisui-san, she growled, about to smack him upside the head. The man was the most un-Uchiha she had ever met. If I didn't know better, I'd say you weren't waiting at death's door just the other day. Were you pretending to sleep? Shisui looked appalled, putting a hand over his chest. How could you say that about me, Sakura-chan? I'm probably the most honest Uchiha you'll ever meet. There is something funky about you, Naruto muttered, squinting his eyes as if to study the older shinobi a bit better. Sasuke smirked. Yeah, Shisui, are you sure you're an Uchiha at all? Where'd you really come from? Itachi, are you seriously going to let them gang up on the poor me like this? He whined. Itachi, who had been watching the entire conversation with mild amusement, simply blinked once in response. I'm not the one getting run under by a group of 10-year-olds. Completely against the odds, Shisui sagged dramatically into his bed, clutching his head. Oh my head, I think I might die early of a migraine. Even knowing that he was joking, Sakura felt her right hand twitch in a habitual movement of checking his condition. If some incompetent nurse accidentally undid all her hard work, she might just blow something up. Oh, don't be melodramatic, Sasuke muttered. At least you don't have academy homework. That stuff is such a bore. Naruto groaned in response. Speaking of, you three, how are your studies going? Shisui grinned, bouncing back from his previous disposition. Going to graduate soon? I'm at the top of the class, Sasuke said proudly, crossing his arms. Naruto's still dead last. I'm not, he interrupted. Only in the stupid writing classes, I hate studying for those. And Sakura, he continued, as if Naruto hadn't spoken, still sleeps through most of the lessons. She shot him a glare. How many times have I told you that it's meditation, not sleeping? Sasuke snorted. Yeah, and remember when Iruka-sensei tried to get your attention for 5 minutes but you wouldn't wake up no matter what? Whatever, she grumbled. At least I always beat you in taijutsu. Sasuke promptly turned tomato red, eyes blazing in embarrassment, and Shisui burst into laughter. Ah, poor Sasuke. Is Sakura-chan still beating you? He clutched his stomach, wiping a non-existent tear from his eyes. Oh man, just give it up, my dear cousin. I will not, Sasuke declared, his face burning. He shot her a glare. Just wait until I awaken my Sharingan, I'll totally win. She raised a delicate brow. Are you, Sasuke, suggesting that you can't defeat me otherwise? Well, I suppose if it'll make you feel better, then sure, go ahead. Shisui erupted into laughter again and Sasuke stiffened. Give it up, Sasuke, Itachi pitched in, lips curved into a rare smile. Leave taijutsu to Sakura-san and you can focus on ninjutsu. Sasuke sighed. Fine, then what's the Dobi going to specialize in? I think Naruto can do ninjutsu too, she suggested. He's got tons of chakra anyway, it doesn't even matter how bad his control is. Yeah, Naruto agreed. I'll totally be awesome at ninjutsu. You're on, Sasuke immediately challenged. I don't lose to anybody. Shisui grinned. Except to Sakura-chan. Get up. Sakura heaved, spitting out blood and dragging a trembling fist against her dirt-stained cheek. Never in all her years of being a shinobi had she ever felt so hopelessly and utterly outclassed. Even when Kagaya had threatened them, she still had Naruto and Sasuke. Still had Kakashi. Here, she was on her own. Cycling chakra through her body. Sakura glared up at the four shinobi standing before her, looking more or less in optimal fighting condition. She had shattered the ribcage of Itachi's Susanoo an hour before, but it hardly hindered its destructive movements. Jiraiya and Obito were still moving freely, and Kakashi had a rakery blazing in his hand. Come on, Sakura, Kakashi chided. You can do better. Jiraiya slammed his hands onto the cavern floor, and a wide swamp appeared under her body, forcing her to move. Flashing away with a double-step Hiraishin, Sakura reappeared behind the Sannin, chakra blade swinging in retaliation. Her attack blasted away his back in a diagonal slash, and she rolled left, already knowing she had seconds before he regenerated himself. The distinct chirp of lightning caught her ear, and she felt the hot chakra of Kakashi's rakery graze her side before she flashed away, landing right beside Itachi. Just as her chakra-enhanced foot was about to meet the skeletal hand of his Susanoo, she felt the distinct pull of Obito's Kamui on her left arm, forcing her to teleport away. She landed gracelessly onto the floor, barely catching herself before Jiraiya appeared behind her back, Rinnegan spinning in his hand. Leaping out of the way, she jumped high into the air with a deep inhale, releasing her strongest fire jutsu onto the cavern ground. A water dragon erupted from Kakashi's chakra, meeting her jutsu head-on. Thick mist settled into the air as Sakura landed back on the floor, shaking from the adrenaline. Are you going to give up now, Sakura-chan? Jiraiya called, landing a few dozen feet away. If this is your limit, say so. She spat against the dirt, clenching her fingers as she gave him a deadly glare. I'll never give up. With a renewed cry, she charged. Sakura, Sakura, Haruno Sakura. She jolted, snapping her eyes open as a stalk of blackboard chalk came flying at her face. Moving her head, she dodged the deadly stick as it hit the desk behind her, spinning and ricocheting to smack Shikamaru in the back on his head. Ow, the boy mumbled, lazily rubbing the area where he had been hit. Naruto and Sasuke snickered next to her. That's it. This is the fourth time this week, Iruka bellowed. Sakura, Shikamaru, stay behind after the class ends. There was a groan behind her where Shikamaru sat, and Sakura didn't even bother giving her meditation excuse anymore. Iruka hadn't believed her since day one. Hi, sensei, she grumbled, giving Naruto and Sasuke a glare. They promptly schooled their features. Iruka dragged the class along in a long explanation of Konoha history for the remainder of the day, and Sakura fought to keep herself looking mildly interested. She didn't know if she could take this for the next 5 years at the academy. The practical lessons were somewhat more intensive, but she wasn't learning anything new at all. When Iruka finally released the class, Naruto and Sasuke gave her a snickering pat on the shoulder. Don't worry, Sakura-chan, I'll have beaten Sasuke Teme by the time you get back. He snorted. Yeah, right, Dobi. She smiled. All right, see you guys there. The two left as the class emptied out, bickering back and forth about who'd defeat the other. Sakura felt her cheeks strain from the grin, her chest humming with satisfaction as she watched them leave. Their bond as brothers and rivals was already so strong. All right, Sakura, Shikamaru. Iruka crossed his arms, trying to look intimidating. Must I lecture you two on this again? How many times has it been now? Sakura didn't bother answering, and neither did the resident genius behind her. Iruka sighed. I don't understand, especially you, Sakura. I know you can do better. Meh, she shrugged her shoulders. I'm not very interested. As expected, he muttered, turning to Shikamaru next. And you don't even try at all. Your grades are horrendous, Shikamaru. You need to stop turning in your tests blank. He gave Iruka a flat look. But that requires effort. Iruka gave a long, suffering sigh and simply gave up. It was the same lecture every week, and Sakura wondered when he would give it up for good. I have your punishment here. He jabbed a finger towards the 2 buckets on the ground. I expect the entire room to be sparkling clean for tomorrow, understand? Even the ceiling. Sakura frowned at the buckets, noting the large towel rags that were folded behind. Hi. Nodding that he at least received an answer from one of them, he grabbed his papers and headed out the door with a snap. For a moment, neither of them spoke until Shikamaru muttered under his breath, pushing himself to his feet. This is so troublesome, but if I'm not home for dinner it'll be even more troublesome. Agreed, she nodding, walking down the steps after him. How should we do this? Shikamaru picked up one of the rags before drenching it in his bucket of soapy water. Dunno. We'd probably need to stack the desks and chairs to get the walls and ceiling though. She picked up her own rag, releasing a pulse of sensory chakra to make sure no Anbu or high-level shinobi were in the area, possibly watching them. When her scan returned clean, she smirked. Leave the walls and ceiling to me, Shikamaru, she said easily. You get everything else on the ground floor. He looked inquisitive for a moment before deciding that it was too much effort to even ask. Deal. Wringing out the extra water, Sakura walked over to the back wall first, slipping off her shoes. She rolled her sleeves above her elbows and pressed the pad of her foot against the wall with chakra. She felt Shikamaru's eyes bore into her back as she walked up the wall. Starting from the top left corner, she got into a crouching position, the towel stretched out in front of her. With a kick, she ran along the top edge of the wall, dragging all the dirt and dust with her. As she neared the corner, she forced her body to flip, using the adjacent wall as leverage and twisted around in the other direction. Back and forth she ran across in a zigzag formation, gradually making her way down to the floor. When the last row was sparkling clean, she released the chakra from her feet, jumping onto the floor. Shikamaru was still staring. You know what'll be real troublesome, Shikamaru? She asked cheerily, cleaning the dirt out of her rag. You end up missing dinner because you spent the entire time staring instead of cleaning. He snorted. Iruka-sensei wasn't lying, I see. Why? Refused to believe that I was actually competent regardless of my sleep schedule? The corner of his lips tugged up. I thought you were meditating. She grumbled. I was. Why does no one ever believe me? Shikamaru got on all fours and started cleaning the ground. Who the heck mediates? What do you even mediate about? There's no subject to meditate on, that would be called analyzing something, she argued, walking up the east wall with a clean rag. It's to clear your mind, and to promote easier chakra regulation in the long run. Got a lot on your mind? He grunted. She refused to sigh. Just saving the world, no big deal. You don't even know the half of it. So why don't you graduate early? Why don't you? She shot back. He momentarily stopped, looking up at her. I'm dead last, Sakura. As if I can. Don't give me that crap, she chided, jumping off the wall. I know you're smart, Shikamaru. You know you're smart. I admit your lazy facade throws people off, but it's hard to hide intelligence, you know. He looked stunned. She gave him a grin. You can't hide intelligence like yours. Besides, who doesn't know that the Nara clan pops out tactical geniuses every generation? But that's all I've got, Sakura, he shrugged, returning to his work. There was something in his eyes that seemed sharper now, as if his previous barrier of cautious laziness disappeared. I'm smart in situations. I could give you hundreds of different ways to subdue a man with a kunai, but implementing it? That's another ordeal. Then practice, she said earnestly. It might sound cliché, but you really can't improve without failure. He looked contemplative. You have to push me, Sakura. Shikamaru rubbed his hands together, a habit that showed he was frustrated. Every day I tell myself things could have been better if I had been stronger earlier. That I could have saved Sasuke when he defected Konoha during our Genin days. That I could have saved Asuma-sensei. That I could have saved Choji and Ino. That's not it, Shikamaru, she argued. You know that mission's failure wasn't on your shoulders and yours only. None of it was. No, it's true, he raised a hand, halting her objection. Even during my fight with Tamari in the Chunin exams, I could think of 10 perfect moves, but my chakra reserves didn't allow me to. It's situations like those where I wish now I would have tried harder when I was younger. What do you want me to do? I need the encouragement to do better, he said firmly. I'll probably be an unbelievable pain in the ass and a lazy coward to boot, but I'll thank you now while we're here. She smiled. I won't let you down. I dunno, he mumbled, wiping down the front row of desks. I don't really find a point in it all. After all 4 walls were done, Sakura walked up to the ceiling, using chakra to stop the blood from piling in her head. Shikamaru, what's your favorite thing to do? Watch clouds, he replied easily. Let me rephrase. What do you do best? He raised an eyebrow. Shogi. She inwardly grinned. Bingo. Are you confident in your abilities? Depends on whom I'm playing against, he replied slowly, giving her a stare. Let's make a deal, Shikamaru, she suggested, landing in front of him. If I can win against you in a game of shogi, you have to come out and train with Naruto, Sasuke and I every day after the academy ends. He stared unblinkingly. And what if I win? Make your offer. He seemed to think, tilting his head as if to get a better analysis of her. I'll think about it. You seem pretty confident that you'll win, she said simply, catching his gaze. So do you. Sakura gave him a wicked grin. Let's figure out then, shall we? Naruto yelled in alarm as the bark on the tree exploded outwards, forcing his body to jump away. He twisted in the air, landing in coordinated ly on his back. Too much chakra, Dobi. Use smaller amounts. I know, he grumbled, picking himself back up. I get how to do it, but using the right amount is impossible. My chakra doesn't want to listen to me. Sasuke grunted as his own tree splintered underneath his foot and he was forced to jump away at the loss of balance. Ma, where's Sakura-chan? He glanced at the sun, noting how close it was to the horizon. She's never been this late. Sasuke's face flickered to one of curiosity as well before worry. Who knows? Iruka-sensei could have had them cleaning the entire academy. Naruto wasn't fooled. What if she's in trouble or something? Come on, we gotta go look for her. What trouble? Sasuke snorted. She's probably just held back. I see you eyeing the scrape on your leg, Naruto commented shrewdly. You wouldn't have to deal with it if we went to find Sakura-chan. The Uchiha stilled, narrowing his eyes. Is this blackmail, Dobi? Just saying, Naruto shrugged innocently. Naruto. Sasuke. Both boys snapped their heads around at the familiar voice, and Naruto felt his chest burst with warmth at her approach. Sakura-chan, he shot to his feet. Where were you? You're so late. Sasuke grunted in agreement. Sorry. Hey, I got caught up with. Is that Shikamaru? He asked, not having noticed the boy before. Sure enough, Shikamaru was quite literally being dragged across the training ground with Sakura's hand firmly gripped the collar of his shirt. His face was uncharacteristically blushing red, a soft groan escaping his throat. Yeah, she said cheerily, practically dumping the boy in between them. Shikamaru's going to start training with us from now on. This lazy bastard? Naruto stared at the dark-haired boy in a new light. I didn't know you even liked training. I don't, the Nara groaned, mumbling into the dirt ground. But, this is so troublesome. Come on, up. Sakura grinned, turning to him and Sasuke. Her brilliant green eyes surveyed the two of them, noting for injuries. Sasuke, leg? He nodded, presenting the long scrape along his calf. Naruto felt a sense of satisfaction. He knew the bastard's leg was bothering him. He himself never needed Sakura's medical attention too much because his injuries always seemed to heal on their own. He supposed it was some super cool ability of his. You can use medical ninjutsu too? Shikamaru frowned, mouth slightly open. Of course, he answered for her, pumping a fist in the air. Sakura-chan's the best. Another disclosed secret. All right? She shot a smile at Shikamaru. He nodded slowly. So what are we doing? Sakura finished healing Sasuke's leg and turned to him with excitement. Why, Shikamaru, you and I are going to spar, of course. He felt his chest about to burst with delight. Watching Sakura fight was one of the coolest things in Naruto's book. Yeah, Sakura-chan will totally beat you. But you're a girl, he whined. It's not right for boys to hit girls. Sakura raised a brow, stretching out her muscles. Is that going to be your excuse when you're put up against enemy Kunoichi? Sasuke came to sit by him, a smirk pulling the corner of his lips. Well, no, but you're not exactly an enemy Kunoichi. You're right. I'm a shinobi, Shikamaru, one that demands you take this seriously. Only taijutsu, okay? But, start, Naruto shouted. Sakura ran towards him with incredible speed, and Shikamaru dodged the last minute, throwing his head down as her fist sailed over. Her knee came flying and he moved to the side, stumbling slightly at the movement. Her fighting was graceful as always, and Naruto noticed Sasuke watch the match with intense concentration, undoubtedly trying to learn her style. He had still yet to defeat her, and was trying to bridge their gap every day. "You're a little lacking in the taijutsu department, Shikamaru," Sakura commented, throwing her leg in a sweep. He jumped, landing shakily before restoring balance. "My clan doesn't deal with taijutsu much. We're predominantly long-distance fighters." "Then force yourself," she grinned, and Naruto had no idea what she was talking about. "Use that head of yours." Shikamaru grunted. "Are you honestly going to let a girl, the same one mind you, defeat you twice in the same day?" Sakura asked slyly, and again, Naruto had no idea what she was referring to. Just what happened during their detention? Something seemed to spark in Shikamaru's eyes, and he began to fight back with renewed vigor. His form was quick and efficient, and Naruto felt surprise for the boy. He never knew Shikamaru was such a decent fighter. He mostly dozed off during taijutsu practice, and they were never paired together for a spar. A sense of excitement built in his chest, something he only felt for Sasuke and Sakura, and he felt the need to spar Shikamaru too. Like Sakura had once said, fighting someone was the best way to build understanding between shinobi. Sakura began to pick up the pace, perfectly executing a taijutsu combination that Naruto recognized. Her sharpened speed caught the boy off guard, and an opened palm came sailing towards his abdomen. The strike made a solid hit, and Shikamaru went flying backwards into the bushes with a surprised grunt. Naruto cheered at her victory. "Ow," Shikamaru drawled, his legs sticking out from the bushes. "I think you broke something." Sakura laughed, walking over to him and pulling him out of the shrubbery. "Toughen up. You did well." "Yeah." Naruto jumped into the air, excitement bubbling in his stomach. "Me too, Shikamaru. I want to fight you next." The Nara groaned, limping out of the trees and collapsing dramatically onto the ground. "I don't think I can move, Naruto." He wilted, before quickly smiling again. "Okay, then I call first dibs tomorrow." Sakura placed her glowing hands on Shikamaru's chest, soothing away the bruise that was beginning to form. "Nothing's broken, so you have no excuse." "How troublesome," he muttered, still clearly out of breath. "I can't believe I agreed into doing this." "Come on," she nudged. "It wasn't that bad, was it?" He looked to be in thought. "Why are you guys doing this anyway? What's all the extra training for?" "'Cause I'm gonna be Hokage." Naruto shouted with conviction. "I gotta train hard and be the best of the best." Sasuke shrugged, muttering about surpassing his brother no matter what it took. "So I can protect the people close to me," Sakura whispered, catching Shikamaru's attention again. "I never want to be in a situation where I'm unable to do anything due to my own weakness." He gave her a funny look. "That's the life of a shinobi, Sakura. Not all of us can live to the old age of the Hokage." She smiled. "I know, but I can't replace friends when they're gone. If it means putting in the extra work now, then I'll do it without complaint." "Don't you have a reason for being a shinobi?" "Dunno. I do come from a clan, so I don't think I can exactly walk away and become a merchant or something." "I'm sure you'll find it," she said with confidence. "And one day you'll realize where all your hard work is leading up to." "Maybe," he murmured, sounding far away in thought. "Okay, all done," she chirped, pulling her hands away. "Let's do some katas." Naruto whooped in agreement, readying his stance. From the corner of his eyes, he saw Shikamaru groan in complaint, but copy Sakura's form. Maybe befriending Shikamaru wouldn't be so bad either. Sakura was 10 the first time Shisui actively sought her out. It had been 4 months since she saved him from his poison-induced coma, and she had made it a nightly habit of perching at the highest cliff to overlook Konoha. For years and years, she had wandered without a village, without a home. Getting to glance at it every night didn't seem to be enough. She wasn't worried. She had strapped on her Anbu uniform and wore her mask, releasing her limiter seals in case she had to make an escape. But it never came to that. The nights were always fairly peaceful and quiet, and she could listen to the sounds of people going about their way, chattering endlessly, and bickering amongst each other. She could hear life. Stepping towards her favorite spot on the cliff, Sakura stopped as she sensed a familiar signature already there. His chakra was bluntly unconcealed, as if he wanted to give no surprises. His back was turned to her, eyes gazing out to the village below. "I can see why you come here," he murmured. "It's certainly nice." She blinked. "Are you here for the view, or for me?" Shisui grinned, turning to face her. A little bit of both actually. You don't mind if I intrude on your spot for a while? She continued her walk, stopping at an arm's distance away. I don't. How long did it take for you to find this place? Too long, he sourly admitted, face scrunching. I've been looking all around Konoha for your seals after you healed me. Which, since I didn't get a chance to tell you personally, thank you. She inwardly sighed. So Itachi told him of her Hiraishin seal. Even though she had erased the mark, it was already branded into his memory thanks to the Sharingan. So you've been looking for me, she concluded. Is this an attempt to get me to the Hokage? He snorted. As if I could. You've saved me twice now, and I'm not someone who ignores that, orders or not. Then why are you here? She asked, surprised. He seemed to hesitate, rubbing his fingers together in an anxious habit. I need your help, he said frankly. With what? He shook his head. Actually no, let me rephrase. Itachi needs your help. Lifting an eyebrow, she gave him a stare. For? Shisui gave a tired sigh, lowering himself onto the ground. When he was 8, Itachi was diagnosed with some form of disease in his lungs. It gives him terrible coughing fits and difficulty breathing, but he hasn't done anything about it. No, there isn't much anyone can do about it according to the Konoha medics. Sakura stilled. Itachi had told her about this. The Edo Tensei had removed the disease entirely, but he had attempted to give her a detailed account of the problem regardless. She had been wondering about how to approach the elusive Uchiha about the matter, and this was the perfect opportunity. It's getting worse, Shisui strained to speak. He's been drowning himself in pain-relieving medication, but unless we find the Slug Princess herself, I don't think he'll live much longer. Fugaku and Makoto-san, as much as they love him, they can't stop this, and they would rather cut their own hands off than to allow Itachi to live the rest of his life as a civilian. She grimaced at the thought. So you want me to try and heal him? He turned to face her fully, eyes glinting in determination. I know you don't owe me anything and you've saved my life far more than reason, but if I have to beg, I will. Please, help him. A soft smile stretched her lips. Shisui's love for his cousin ran unfathomably wide. It was no wonder Itachi's Mangekyo awakened with his death. You don't have to beg, Shisui-san. I'll do my best to help him, but I can't make any guarantees. Where is he? He breathed in clear relief, dark eyes shining with gratitude. Training ground. I'll take you to him. Nodding, Shisui left in a leap and Sakura followed after, mind swirling with possibilities. Itachi had told her his disease began acting up the year he joined Akatsuki. It was already 2 years past that point, and she wondered how much of his body had been damaged. Originally, he had kept himself alive with the thought of Sasuke killing him, but now that the massacre had been avoided, was there anything Itachi was living for? A troubling sense of sorrow filled her thoughts. Did he even want to live? Sakura knew that he wasn't suicidal, but the man was a pacifist by nature. If there was a way out of the shinobi world, especially in one where he didn't seem to be all needed, would he take it? They neared one of the training grounds on the outskirts of the village and Shisui spiked his chakra. Soon after, Itachi gave a response, pointing them a little more west. Sakura could pinpoint the exact moment Itachi saw her. He stopped his training, standing in the midst of a ruined field, Sharingan spinning to keep track of her movements. Itachi, Shisui landed a few feet away and Sakura kept a respectable distance from the two. You're probably going to smack me for this, but I have no common sense? Itachi smoothly interrupted, glancing at her. I already knew. What is he doing here? Sakura bit back a grin as Shisui sighed. I brought him to take a look at your lungs. Itachi froze, displeasure running through his normally stoic face. So that's why you've been running around Konoha for the past few months. You caught me. Shisui gave a small smile. Itachi sighed quietly, sheathing his sword. There's nothing that can be done for. Yes, there is, he interrupted, eyes narrowing. You saw firsthand how he brought me back when every Konoha medic said I wouldn't make it. You were there. I asked, and he's willing to try for you, so please just don't give up yet. There was a heavy silence that met Shisui's outburst before Itachi closed his eyes, giving him a barely there nod. If you must. Sakura took this as her cue to approach, glancing at Shisui as she passed. She pointed to an untouched area of the field, looking at Itachi. Remove your shirt and take a seat, Itachi-san. I'll do an analysis today and see if I can help. Slipping out of his mesh shirt, Itachi walked over to the designated area and sat down, revealing his bare back to her. It's going to feel a little intrusive, but don't fight back, she ordered gently, taking a seat behind him. He gave a small nod. Shisui also sat down a few feet away, watching with a worried gaze. Sakura slipped off her gloves and placed her hands over his back, sending in a wave of diagnostic chakra. Closing her eyes, she allowed her chakra to visualize for her. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad as Itachi had described it to be during the last year of his life. The disease was beginning to take root, but it hadn't progressed far enough that it was completely untreatable. She could still help him. Pinpointing the areas of concern, Sakura committed the damage to memory, going through dozens of different ways to help cure him. She had already created a few methods before coming back in time, but now that she had direct observation, those theories could be vastly improved. Hold your breath, she commanded. When I say, go, you're going to cough as hard as you can. Lean forward. He took in a breath. Quickly and efficiently as possible, she isolated all the clogged mucus and blood in his lungs, forcing them to separate. With a surge of chakra, she moved to expel it through his esophagus. Go. He gave a chest-heaving cough, retching everything that she had been able to grab from his lungs. He choked slightly and shuddered, tightening his hand into a trembling fist as to not fall over completely. One more time, she urged. Instead of complaining, he took in a large breath as she cycled through his lungs again, picking up every last bit of gunk that remained. Go. Shisui gave a small wince of sympathy as Itachi coughed and spat against the ground, blood trailing down his chin. With a soft glow of her hands, she sent in a wave healing chakra in order to soothe his irritated lungs, urging the healthy cells to fix the damage the disease had caused. She heard Itachi take in a deep breath, and smiled at the smoothness of it. Breathing easier? She checked. He cleared his throat. Yes. So, White Anbu-san, is my idiot of a cousin curable? She lifted an eyebrow at the nickname, forgetting for a moment that he could not see behind the mask. The disease isn't at a terminal stage at the moment, but his lungs have already taken an incredible amount of damage. What I've done today is just a treatment. With the dependence we put on our lungs every day, I suspect I'll have to do this once a week before I can find a cure. Shisui took in a sharp breath. So you can? Cure him, that is? I can, she affirmed. Itachi stilled under her hands. But only if Itachi-san would allow me to. You'd have to go under an intensive surgery, and at this point, I'd say your survival rate is 50-50. He'll take it, Shisui answered, glaring at his cousin as if daring him to argue. Itachi heaved a long sigh, as if testing out his temporary fix. He then gave a firm nod. Very well, she breathed, feeling relief pass through her. Maybe he had a reason to live after all. Until I can come up with a cure, I will meet you here once a week to treat your lungs. Is this acceptable? More than, Shisui once again answered. I can't explain how grateful I am that you're doing this. I don't need thanks, she said seriously, getting to her feet. Just continue to protect and treasure Konoha. Is that a promise? A fleeting look of surprise flashed through his face before his grinned. Ah, you have my word. Smiling to herself, she turned on her heel and disappeared from the field. Sakura-chan. Groaning, she forced an eye to open, seeing the blurry image of Naruto stand over her, blue eyes round with worry. Sasuke was next to him, giving her a strange look. Was he? She grumbled, rubbing the sleep out of her eyes. Academy's over, he said. Iruka-sensei let us out 5 minutes ago. Are you okay? Oh God. She had slept through an entire day of lessons? Oh, she said lamely, getting up from her seat. Yeah, I'm just really tired. The three left the classroom as Sasuke kept sending her suspicious looks. Sakura, I think you're sick. You look pretty terrible too. Forcing down the urge to punch him through the wall, she sighed. For the last 2 months, she had been preparing her surgery for Itachi's lungs, and was finally able to change the success rate to a whopping 83%. Within the last week, she had been getting ready for the procedure by secretly stealing some needed supplies from the hospital day by day. I'm fine, she insisted, scrunching her face. A sudden idea came to mind and she paused. But I think I'll visit the hospital just in case. I am feeling a little woozy. Naruto looked devastated. But you're never sick. Are you gonna be alright? She smiled. Of course, Naruto. You know sickness can't hold me down. I'll be up and running before you know it. He looked relieved. Good. Cuz who's gonna heal all the injuries I'm going to give Sasuke Teme this weekend? What was that? The Uchiha growled. We'll see who's going to give who injuries, and I'll have you know, it's not going to be me that needs healing. Bring it, Sasuke. I'll beat your stupid Uchiha superiority out of your head any day. You're on. Sakura felt a smile tug at her lips as they left the academy, and she took in a deep breath, stitching the moment into her memory. Hopefully, things would always remain like this. Early in the following morning, Sakura stood at the highest cliff overlooking Konoha, waiting in her customary ambu gear. She had all her medical supplies packed with her, and took a deep inhale of the crisp air. The sun was barely rising. There was a flicker of chakra and two shinobi landed behind her, dressed as if they were taking a rest day. Which, according to their excuse for the Hokage, they certainly were. She had left a clone behind in bed, convincing Naruto and Sasuke that she needed the weekend to recover from a terrible cold, and not to visit unless they wanted to catch what she had. She had threatened to bash their faces in if they got sick because of her. She hoped that it would keep them away. Turning on her heel, she eyed both Uchihas. Ready? They gave her a nod. Give me your hand, both of you, she asked, lifting her own hand's palm up. They each dropped their respective hands into her grasp and there was a flare of chakra before she warped them out of Konoha. Sakura landed with well-practiced grace while Itachi and Shisui looked slightly shaken from the teleportation. She inwardly smirked. The first time she had tried the Hiraishin, she landed flat on her face. Wow, Shisui blinked. So that's what it feels like to fly through time and space. I'm not sure I like it. It takes time to get used to, she admitted. Where is this? Itachi asked softly, glancing around the dark hall. An abandoned area in Whirlpool, she said, leading them deeper down into the building. Shisui looked stunned. You mean we're not even in fire country anymore? No, she confirmed. I thought it would be best due to it being neutral ground since its destruction. No other questions were asked as Sakura led them into the deepest sector of the corridor. The room was far brighter with lights hung up along the walls and ceiling. She squinted slightly to adjust. There was an operating table in the far back hooked to many machines and monitors that she had taken from the hospital. She knew from personal experience that the extra machines were hardly accounted for. It would take a long while before anyone noticed they were missing. You've really got this place filled out, Shisui commented, glancing around. It's a 28-hour surgery, she said simply. I need everything I could get. Itachi-san if you will. She pointed to the table and he walked over, slipping out of his clothes. Shisui-san, I need you to check the perimeter every 2 hours. Whirlpool may have been destroyed, but it doesn't mean shinobi don't pass through the area. I don't want to take any chances. Right, he nodded. I'll take my first round. Slipping on his weapon gear, he was gone in a flicker. A bright light flooded Itachi's pale form as she clicked on the lamp, and she studied his physique with a quick clinical scan. He was tall for his age but still grossly underweight due to his sickness. Placing a hand on his bicep, she slid an IV through his arm, prepping the machines to read his signals. Relax, she said softly, placing a mask over his mouth and nose. Count to 10 in your head. It'll all be over by the time you wake up. Within moments, his breathing evened out, eyelids shutting close. Sakura took a deep inhale, lifting off all her worries and insecurities. She was in her element. She was going to save him. Hiru-kun, thanks for cleaning out the lab last week. I didn't notice at first but you did a really good job with sanitizing everything. A black-haired man raised his head from the microscope. Masaki-chan? Wait, I thought you were the one who cleaned them out. She made a face of confusion. No, I thought you. He shrugged. Probably one of the interns cleaned it for us. How nice of them. Oh, that's quite thoughtful, she smiled, thinking about which one could have done it. They were all sweet-mannered and hard-working. It could have been all of them. I want to do something nice for them too. How about we buy them dinner? He gave a grin. Sounds good. I know they've been working pretty hard. So did you ever find out what happened to Uchiha Shisui? She asked, rummaging through the cabinets for the right painkillers. I know you were placed under Okuro-sensei with his case. Hiru shook his head. No idea. Sensei said there was some sort of unidentifiable poison clogging his brain. Extracting it meant death. He certainly wasn't going to do it and have the Uchiha die under his hand. The clan would have been after his head. And if Sensei couldn't, no one could. And yet, she pressed. It's sort of hard to believe. Uchiha-san simply woke up one morning, and a quick scan revealed his head and body completely free of any toxins. Even that huge scar across his torso disappeared. She felt a sense of awe grip her. So it was true. Yeah, Hiru nodded, turning a knob ever so slowly. It's been under tight wraps, but you know how the Uchiha are. It might be some freak of nature power that they have. Wow, she murmured, hugging the bottle of painkillers to her chest. Then what about that Uchiha Itachi? Is he? Shush. He hushed, snapping his head around. You know that's a top-secret patient of Sensei's. She nodded. But is he still? You know? Hiru nodded. Okuro Sensei's the best in Konoha, and even he gave the Uchiha genius 3 more years to live at most. How tragic, she whispered, darting her eyes around just in case. But Hiru-kun, what if he somehow miraculously recovers like Shisui-san? He gave a snort. I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah, she breathed. You're right, that'd be so silly. Since when were the Uchihas such capable self-healers? Exactly, Hiru nodded, snapping the microscope off. Now let's think about dinner. What do you have in mind? She smiled, all thoughts of Uchihas leaving her mind. How does barbecue sound? When Shisui returned from his last perimeter check, he was terribly tired and dreary. There had been a brief confrontation with a few bandits, some travelers, and a couple gold diggers, but they were nothing he couldn't handle with a little genjutsu. Jumping back into the abandoned building the white Anbu had brought them to, he felt his legs lengthen in strides as he approached. Itachi's surgery should have finished by now. He flared his chakra, letting the occupants know of his identity before busting into the room. The Anbu was no longer standing restlessly over Itachi, but slouched in a chair, head titled back in obvious exhaustion. Success, his whispered, voice raspy and low. Shisui could have cried right then and there, but he kept his emotions inside, unwilling to shed them. Itachi probably would have smacked him if he were awake. He approached his cousin, taking note of his smooth and deep breathing while listening to his heart monitor beep. He'll be out for another day, the Anbu said gently. I'll give him 2 more days of aftercare and rest before he can be moved. He felt his chest lighten. He owed so much to this person and he didn't even know his face or name. You should rest, Shisui urged. So should you. He sighed. It was like arguing with Itachi. I promise I won't peek under your mask. Ah, he breathed, a sense of mirth in his tone. You don't have to worry about that. I need to pick up some things in Konoha, so I will be returning there for rest. Itachi-san's vital readings are linked to my chakra, so if anything goes wrong, I'll be here in seconds. Thank you, he said firmly, trying to meet his eyes. You're probably sick of hearing this from Itachi and I, but there's no other way to express my gratitude. You're welcome, Shisui-san. He pursed his lips. Just out of curiosity, do you go around Konoha doing good deeds and mysteriously saving people every day? His chest bubbled in slight laughter and Shisui noted that it was quite soft and melodious. Sometimes. For how long? He asked, pressing his luck. Because I'm really starting to doubt your age. You must be under some sort of highly complex appearance jutsu. I've heard rumors that Tsunade of the Sannin uses something similar that even the Sharingan can't see past. Now, Shisui-san, aren't you getting a little personal? There's a reason I have a mask on my face, you know. He gasped, a sudden idea popping into his head. Are you perhaps the Yondaime reincarnated? The Anbu nearly fell out of his chair. He felt something click. Yeah, it'd make sense. The Yondaime died 10 years ago sealing the Kyuubi, and you're the perfect size for his reincarnation. Am I right? I mean, how else would you be able to utilize Hiraishin so well? The Anbu burst out in laughter, quite literally falling of the chair as he clutched his stomach. His voice was hoarse and weary from exhaustion, but Shisui could sense true amusement in it. He wilted. So either I'm dead right or completely wrong. Which is it? His laughter died into slow breaths, and Shisui could have sworn he was smirking under the mask. I don't think I'll say anything, he replied shrewdly. Now are you done asking questions? He grumbled. I'm a curious shinobi by nature. Can't help it. With another amused grunt, the Anbu got to his feet, steadily testing out his balance. Well then, I'm sure you could use that curiosity to keep Itachi-san safe while I'm gone. I will return in 12 hours. Shisui gave him an affirmative nod and a sigh. Very well. After giving the room one last glance, the Anbu pivoted on his heel and disappeared in a flash. Walking over to the second chair, Shisui collapsed onto the seat with his head rolled back. Hey, Itachi, our roles are sorta reversed now, How does it feel? Even breathing responded to the silence, occasionally disrupted by the heart monitor. Leaning back further into the chair, Shisui allowed himself to close his eyes, listening to his cousin's heartbeat. Before entering, he had placed a strong genjutsu around the entire building. If it was broken, he'd immediately know. With that thought, he allowed himself to succumb to sleep, imagining all the teasing remarks of, "I told you so," that he would throw when his silly cousin awoke. A large smile stretched across her lips as Sakura picked up the get well card on her nightstand, reading the message and sighed. Itachi was on his way to recovery, resting in the confines of the old Uchiha compound with Shisui. She had told them that if there were any problems, she could be found sitting on the highest cliff that overlooked Konoha every night, the exact spot where Shisui had first found her. She did her damn best within the last 3 days to help him recover, and hoped Itachi would take his rest seriously. If he ended up getting some sort of infection due to training when he should have been sleeping, she had threatened to gouge out his eyeballs and transplant them in backwards. Sakura sighed as her clone's memories settled in her mind. Naruto and Sasuke had visited her twice, and she had pretended to sleep both times they were over. The card in her hand had a delicately written letter for her health, and the bottom was signed off with Naruto and Sasuke's name. It was then roughly crossed out and replaced with Sasuke and Naruto. That was crossed out as well, replaced with Naruto and the Teme. Another cross, Sasuke and the Dobi. A large X covered the entire mess of signatures before a delicate hand concluded the letter with, "Sincerely, Makoto and the boys." She burst out into laughter, imagining the two fighting over whose name would be written first. Of course they would fight about it. A momentary sense of guilt washed over her at fooling them, but she quashed it without mercy. Itachi's life was far more important than her silly feelings of guilt. Setting the card down, she turned to glance at the single sunflower on her stand. She immediately recognized the wrapping as the style from Ino's shop, but a quick retrace of her clone's memories proved that the blonde had not visited her. Shikamaru. Sliding out of bed, Sakura quickly made her way to the bathroom in order to ready herself for the day. After coming in with chakra exhaustion, she had woken up well into the afternoon, missing the morning lessons of the academy. After getting out of the shower and pulling on her clothes, Sakura left the house with a quick snack. Her parents had left on another business trip, and wouldn't be back for the next 2 months. Closing the door behind her with a tune on her lips, Sakura turned to the streets and stopped dead in her tracks. The Hokage mountain was orange. Bright orange. Her sandwich nearly dropped from her hand as her jaw dropped, unable to turn away from the atrocious image. Whispers and shrieks of disbelief ran through the streets as people stopped and turned to look at the carved faces on the cliff's edge. Hashirama had been given a black, perfectly curved mustache, contrasting greatly with his new orange color. Tobirama had been turned into a drag queen. The third had his beard littered with black dots, making it look as if he had fleas, and Naruto's father was sporting the face of a clown. By the reactions of the people in the streets, this had not been the case until very recently. Feeling a sense of foreboding, Sakura hastened her strides to the academy. She kept a keen ear on the whispers, wondering if the culprits had been caught already. 3 streets down, she felt familiar chakra signatures come into her range. They were running. From the other end of the road, Sakura could spot Naruto in the lead with Sasuke on his left and Shikamaru right behind, running as if their lives depended on it. Sakura-chan. She stopped dead, blinking in horror. She assumed they would stop to tell her the news, but she was very, very wrong. 2 arms hooked her under the shoulder, and Shikamaru's arm wrapped around her ankles, hoisting her into the air and running on without pause. "What are you guys doing?" she spluttered. The rockiness of their running was jostling her grip on her sandwich. "We'll explain later," Sasuke yelled back, picking up the pace. From the other end of the street, she spotted Iruka and a few other chunins rounding the corner, looking absolutely murderous. "Sakura," Iruka bellowed, spotting her hanging within the boy's grasp. "So this is why you were absent this morning." She let out a horrified gasp. "Wait, what?" "Naruto," Shikamaru called. "They're gaining on us." I know," the blonde answered. "Just follow my lead. I know exactly where to go." Sakura could only tilt her head back in confusion, trying to see where the boys were leading her. "Did you guys do that to the Hokage mountain?" she demanded, trying to glare the answer out of them. "It wasn't my idea," Shikamaru groaned, readjusting his grip on her legs. Of course, Sasuke smirked. It's a masterpiece. Naruto suddenly took them in a steep right, and she felt her body being pulled from odd directions before the other two boys followed along. She jerked her head back, trying to see the road with upside-down vision. They were rapidly approaching a tall brown fence. Naruto cackled, bringing up a hand seal. Sasuke, Shikamaru, how are your henge skills? Perfect, the Uchiha muttered, bringing up his own ram seal. Shikamaru grunted. Passable. Good, Naruto yelled, prepared to henge into some women. There was a moment of confusion that passed through the dark-haired boys, but it was too late. With a mighty leap, Naruto jumped into the air with Sasuke and Shikamaru following his lead without hesitation. Sakura's jaw dropped as she soared through the air between them, understanding dawning through her. Her sandwich fell from her grasp. Oiroke no jutsu, Naruto yelled. There were 3 clouds of smoke that erupted around her, and Sakura looked down to see them passing over the tall wooden fence, heading straight towards the women's hot springs. There was a short cry of surprise from the occupants as 4 bodies fell into the wide pool of the scalding hot water, and Sakura felt her limbs being released. Righting herself, she shot her head out of the surface, gasping as the air hit her tingling skin. 3 more heads burst from the surface, and she felt her jaw lower at the sight of them. Shikamaru looked like a younger version of his mother. And Sasuke, he could give Haku a run for his money. Long ebony hair trailed down from head to waist, framing the most delicate of facial features. My goodness, one of the elder ladies in the pool put a hand on her chest. Her bare chest. Where did you 4 come from? Shikamaru blushed red, forcing himself to look down, and Sasuke seemed to hold back his flush with pure willpower. He opted to look at the fence. You got to help us, lady. Naruto shouted, his voice uncharacteristically high-pitched. There's these perverted shinobi that are after us. What? Another woman gasped, looking scandalized. Perverts? That seemed to catch the attention of everyone in the hot springs, and Sakura glanced around to see at least a dozen women in the pool. In a beat, the fence shook as a half-dozen shinobi landed on the top of the railing. Naruto, you, holy. Iruka promptly went beet red, a spurt of blood trailing from his nose. He fell backwards, disappearing behind the fence. It's the perverts, one of the women screeched, her voice echoing through the hot springs. Protect the young ones. Wait a minute. A Chunin held his hands out. This isn't what it looks like. We're here for. Immediately, a swarm of women surrounded the 4 of them in the water, and Sakura thought Shikamaru was about to faint from turning so red. Sasuke didn't look any better. Get out of here, you perverts. You disgusting excuse of a shinobi. I ought to emasculate you. The shinobi dodged a barrage of flip-flops and deadly aimed bars of soap, looking mixed between embarrassed and stunned. We only want those 4. They're not who you. Pedophiles, the elderly lady screamed. The worst kind. How dare you show your face here? What? No. Get out. Perverts. Pedophiles. I'll report you to the Hokage. The final threat seemed to do it as the last remaining shinobi, who hadn't fainted from a nosebleed, jumped off the fence, red-faced. As their chakra signatures went away, Sakura glanced up, finding a very prominent pair of right in front of her face. Are you 4 okay? The women cooed, patting her soaked hair as some form of comfort. There, don't be scared. The big sisters sent them all away. Thanks, Nei-chan. Naruto gave a cheek-splitting grin. We really owe you. Nonsense, another lady smiled warmly. We girls have to look out for each other, Nei? If they bother you again, you 4 come straight to us. Naruto nodded eagerly. You're the best. There was a round of mutual agreement that went through the women as Sakura grabbed Shikamaru and Sasuke's arms, towing them out of the water. Oh my god, Shikamaru muttered under his breath. My mother will kill me when she finds out. If she finds out, Sasuke threw back. Because my mother will not be hearing of this. Sakura just smacked both of them upside the head as they walked out of the building, glancing around to make sure no Chunins were waiting to ambush them. Naruto finally made his way out last. There was a simultaneous poof of smoke as the 3 boys released their jutsu, reverting back to their usual forms. Congratulations on getting better, Sakura-chan. Naruto cheered, his hair still dripping wet. She smacked the back of his head as well, causing the blonde to cry in alarm, mirroring Shikamaru and Sasuke's pose. What was that for? All 3 chorused. She gave a dramatic sigh. I lost my sandwich, you idiots. Sakura lifted an eyebrow at the two boys in front of her, watching them slightly squirm under her gaze. What did you do this time? She asked, wanting to sigh in exasperation. She spends one Sunday evening with her parents and something clearly goes wrong. Naruto grunted. It's Sasuke Tomi's fault. Is not, he immediately defended. You're the one who wanted to challenge him in the first place. He called us losers by fate. Naruto shot back. Were you really gonna stand there and let him insult you? Of course not, but that didn't mean you had to run your mouth off about Sakura. Sasuke growled. He's already a genin. I don't care. The blonde crossed his arms. He kept shouting about the greatness of clan kids and how we'll never match up. He's worse than you cold fish Uchihas. Hey, quit insulting my clan. Sakura suddenly had a dreadful feeling, already having a good idea who they were talking about. Okay, enough, she raised her hands. So you challenged some stuck-up genin to a fight. Did you at least win? Naruto immediately wilted. Well, we didn't actually fight because, I might have. Sort of. He challenged him with your name, Sasuke said instead, giving Naruto a glare. Said you could defeat him in taijutsu match. Sakura wanted to smack her face. Of course Naruto would. He kept saying you wouldn't match up because you didn't come from a clan. Naruto said, clenching his fists. I was just so angry and he was insulting you and I. Naruto, she called softly, putting a firm hand on his shoulder. It's fine. I'm happy that you stood up for me. I don't believe in this fate nonsense either. He looked ready to cry. You're not mad? I'm not, she assured, and she saw Sasuke lower his shoulders in relief as well. Just tell me who you challenge. He scrunched his face. Some weird-eyed. Hyuga Neji, Sasuke supplied. Yeah, that's the name. Naruto nodded. I told him we'll be at training ground 11 after the academy ends. Sakura glanced at the clock, wanting to sigh. Well, we're already 10 minutes late. Shall we go? She took the lead out the door with Sasuke and Naruto silently following behind. Don't worry Sakura-chan, Naruto muttered as they walked out of the building. You'll win for sure. How do you know? She asked with honest curiosity. I could just as easily lose. You won't, Sasuke said, voice filled with such conviction, she nearly faltered. Because he's a loner of a shinobi. Naruto and I briefly watched him train with his team yesterday, and he doesn't respect either of them. You won't lose to a guy like that. She felt a smile creep onto her face. Thanks, you too. Within minutes, they neared the field of training ground 11, and she sent a slither of chakra to her ear, allowing her to pick up 3 voices. Of course they're not coming, a cold voice said, and she automatically linked it to Neji's. They're just academy students. They probably realized that they don't stand a chance. You were too harsh, a softer voice scolded. Tenten, they said they were going to graduate in 4 months. You can't call them doomed failures. Tenten is right, Lee's ever-enthusiastic voice intervened. Guy-sensei always says that the students are the future of a youthful Konoha. You're no different than them, Lee, Neji shot back. Just give it up, you'll never defeat me either. Tenten gave a soft sigh just as Sakura walked into the field, catching their attention. We're here, you fate-obsessed jerk. Naruto announced, pointing a finger at the Hyuga. Get ready to be pummeled into the ground by Naruto. She groaned, swiping his finger away. Pointing fingers isn't nice manners. He grumbled. I don't think this guy even knows what nice manners are. Neji narrowed his snowy eyes. So the losers have returned. Hey, we didn't lose in anything. Naruto growled. Sasuke nodded vehemently in agreement. Doesn't matter how many people you bring, Neji sneered. Once a loser is always a loser. And it looks like I'll have to break you out of your delusion in thinking that you're worth anything. Sakura gave a quiet exhale, feeling a spike of anger cloud her eyes. She knew she was no Naruto, but she was perfectly capable of knocking him down a couple notches. She missed the old Neji dearly. The one who had learned to depend on others, to let go of his bitterness, the one who saved Naruto's life. Flashes of his death flew past her eyes, and she held back a shudder. Had she been faster, stronger, had more chakra? No, never again. She met his gaze squarely. No one else is needed. Hyuga-san, she said softly, walking into the center of the field. I am enough. He scowled. Such useless confidence. Are you the clanless one that those two were going about yesterday? Just give it up, you won't get anywhere in the shinobi life either. It's your fate, Neji. Tenten frowned, clearly unhappy with his words. Sakura remembered that she also came from a clanless background. She fought the urge to roll her eyes. Let's make a deal, Hyuga-san. If you win this match, I'll admit to being a failure and quit being a shinobi. Naruto gasped and Sasuke stiffened, eyes widening. Sakura-chan, no, it's not. She put up a hand, halting the blonde's words. I don't go back on my word. Now, if I win. There's no need to say it, Neji spat. Your fate was sealed the moment you decided to come here. You won't win. Do not interrupt me, Hyuga, she said coldly, eyes hardening. If I win, you will sincerely apologize to your teammates as well as Naruto and Sasuke for your belittling words. Tenten gave her a bewildered look and Lee's jaw dropped. Fine, Neji nodded. If you want to quit being a shinobi so desperately, I'll gladly do the honors. She smiled. In fact, I'll make it easy for you. Land one solid hit on me, and I'll consider it your victory. Naruto looked close to fainting and Sasuke was glaring hard. Your stupidity is overwhelming, he snarled, clearly detesting the fact that his skills were being undermined. I'll finish this in seconds. Sakura crouched down, discreetly unwrapping the bandage on her left leg and releasing a flare of chakra into the weight seal. It disabled at her touch, and she felt a series of clicks run down her spine, traveling to the tips of her fingers and to her feet. She was free. Rewrapping her ankle, she stood up, eyeing the boy across from her. He settled into the gentle fist stance, veins protruding from the side of his eyes. A tense silence hung in the air as both waited to observe. Sakura knew he was gravely underestimating her, and it would turn to be his downfall. As expected, Neji lashed out first, palm flying through the air to strike her chest. She sidestepped nimbly, sensing the wash of chakra that surrounded his fingers. He came from her left, and she made a smooth dodge, missing his hand by inches. Again and again, Sakura maneuvered around his strikes in a graceful dance, noting the surprise that was starting to grow in his eyes. Is running the only thing you can do? He hissed. His movements started to quicken, momentarily forcing her on the defensive. Increasing her speed, Sakura parried his blows with chakra-coated hands of her own, neutralizing his attacks. It was an extremely difficult skill to master that needed absolute precision, but if there was one thing she was strong in, it was her chakra control. Sakura ducked under a strike and finally lifted a hand in retaliation. His eyes widened as she slipped past his guard, hand moving to his face. With a chakra-enhanced finger, she flicked his forehead protector, sending him flying back with a surprised grunt. Not giving him time to catch himself, Sakura shunshined behind him in a flash, slamming her heel into his chest with the slightest bit of chakra, just enough to bruise painfully but not break. She didn't want to incapacitate him for life. He crashed into the ground, breaking into the earth, and his Byakugan faded from her disturbing shock of chakra. She saw his right shoulder dislocate under the pressure, and her other foot came sliding into his throat, forcing his chin back and exposing his neck. The training ground went silent. She pressed a kunai to his jugular, giving him the coldest look she could muster. Do you know where a shinobi gains his strength from, Hyuga-san? She asked, watching him struggle underneath her foot. The reason why I was able to defeat you today was because of Naruto and Sasuke. They are the ones that pull me forward and strengthen my spirit to get stronger every day. But you fight for yourself. A shinobi is only as strong as the people or things he wants to protect. If you have none of that, it's no wonder you lost to me. He spat out blood, eyes narrowing. You wouldn't understand anything. I don't need to understand, she said simply. I may not come from a clan, but that doesn't mean I can't be a shinobi. It doesn't matter where you were born. We all climb the ladder the same way through hard work and determination. Frankly, the only idea of fate that is chaining you down is yourself. Pushing off his chest, Sakura rose to her feet and tucked her kunai away. You may give your apologies at your own time, she said, glancing back to his shocked teammates. Because if a shinobi is anything, he doesn't go back on his given word. Ah, she turned back to him, watching him struggle out of the broken earth. You should probably visit the hospital too. When you become a true shinobi worthy of my respect, I'll consider healing you then. In a pivot of her heel, she walked back to her boys, nothing the look of relief that was on their faces. Betting with your shinobi career was unheard of, after all. Sakura-chan, You scared me for a moment there, Naruto whispered, clutching his jacket. Sasuke glared. If Sakura had lost her shinobi career because you ran your mouth off, I was going to pummel you myself. He gave a feeble nod. Sounds acceptable. Laughing lightly, she threw her arms around them with a warm smile. Wanna get some ramen? I'm too lazy to make dinner. Sasuke gave a smirk and Naruto cheered excitedly, his previous disposition fading. You got it, Sakura-chan. Ramen bonding time is a must. Dobi, don't give it such a weird name, Sasuke grimaced. Let's call it a weekly gathering or something. But that's so boring, the blonde complained. How about an epic noodle meeting? Sasuke sighed, and she gave a silly grin. Done. From now on, our weekly visits to Ichiraku shall be called epic noodle meetings. I'll fail them. Sarutobi sighed, looking at the war-hardened shinobi in front of him. You haven't even looked at their profiles, Kakashi. The copy nin shrugged, looking perfectly unruffled. Don't need to. No one is going to meet my expectations, Hokage-sama. They're all children trying to play shinobi. He felt a smile creep onto his face. I insist, Kakashi, take a look at your team. A file flew in the air and Kakashi caught the folder easily, flipping the cover open. There was a slight stiffening of his shoulders and Sarutobi knew he saw the first candidate. You're giving me Minato's son? You'd be the most capable, he nodded. Naruto's scores are not too terrible either. His written exam was atrocious but he did pass. I won't give him special circumstances just because he's Minato's son, Kakashi said seriously. If he doesn't meet, he fails. As I would expect, Sarutobi replied easily. Kakashi flipped to the next profile, one eye narrowing. Uchiha Sasuke. I heard he hardly matches up to his brother's genius. He's this year's #1 rookie, Sarutobi reminded. Maybe not a prodigy by your standards but he does come from that clan. He's bound to get interesting developments. His scores are decent, the copy nin nodded slowly, scanning the profile. He gave a deep puff of smoke from his pipe. Just give him a chance, Kakashi. We'll see, Kakashi muttered, flipping to the last candidate. Haruno Sakura? Isn't this the civilian girl that Naruto was friends with as a kid? The one and only. You'll see that she's no simple civilian, regardless of her background. Take a look at her final test scores. Reminds you of someone you know, Itachi, he murmured, lone eye wide. But her yearly class scores are terribly average. Don't let it fool you, Sarutobi warned. She's highly intelligent for her age. Shikaku told me she bested his son, Shikamaru, in shogi when they were 7, still continues to if I may add. So she's paper smart, Kakashi argued. He gave a knowing smile. As you're quite close to Guy, I'm assuming you heard about what happened to his genius student just 4 months ago. Kakashi gave a quick and wary glance around the office as if he expected the green-clad shinobi to come bursting into the room. Something about a youthful blossom of such grace that changed the boy forever, is all I got from the conversation, Kakashi admitted. Sarutobi chuckled. I don't know the details myself but Haruno Sakura somehow ended up fighting Hyuga Neji and defeated him mercilessly. I believe he got a rude awakening from being crushed by an academy student. Kakashi's eyebrow rose. So my team consists of a Jinchuriki, an Uchiha, and civilian-born genius? What are you setting them up for? Hunter Nen? He sighed. Surprisingly, that was not what I had in mind. The three of them simply gravitated together over the years of being close friends. I don't think it'd be wise to separate them. Besides, their academy scores balance each other out more or less. Kakashi grunted, snapping the folder shut. We'll see how they do tomorrow. He walked out of the office in a nonchalant pose, but Sarutobi had seen the glimmer of curiosity in his eye. He had him caught. Hitaki Kakashi, her voice rang out in the empty room. Naruto and Sasuke were peering with interest over her shoulder. Also known as Copy Nin Kakashi for having a Sharingan in his left eye from an unknown incident many years back. Rumored to have copied over 1,000 jutsu. What? Sasuke frowned, staring at the book in her hands. I've never heard of that. Our clan has tight regulations on the Sharingan. How the hell did he get it? She shrugged, knowing the story would pop up later. Guess we'll figure out, Let's see. Graduated from the academy when he was 5, made Chunin promotion when he was 6. 5? Naruto screeched, disbelief over his face. We all entered the academy at 5. It was during the Third Shinobi War, Dobi, Sasuke clarified, still frowning. They forced kids out of the academy as soon as possible if they showed even the slightest bit of potential. It's what happened to Itachi ni. Oh, Naruto quieted, looking uncharacteristically dispirited. What else? He was in a team under the 4th Hokage, Namikaze Minato, widely known for his genius at ninjutsu and keen intelligence. A formidable shinobi, Sasuke nodded in satisfaction. Sakura grinned. He also has a habit of being notoriously late to everything. You know what that means? Naruto gave a sly smile. The prank is on. Sasuke smirked. Eraser ready? Check. Paintballs? Check. Wires? Water? Check. 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 Let's get this started, Sakura-chan. She grinned, feeling Naruto's excitement fill the room. It's been a few hours, so he should be here soon. Sit down and act innocent. The blonde snickered, sitting down next to her as they surveyed the rigged room. It was a masterpiece. Sure enough, Sakura sensed a familiar chakra signature walk down the hallway towards their room. She tensed slightly, alerting Naruto and Sasuke to their guest. A hand gripped the edge of the door, freeing the eraser that was held against the wall. Faster than she could blink, the wires triggered as the door moved, and a launch of paintballs flew towards the white-haired Jonin at the doorstep. A bucket of water swung from the adjacent wall, pouring its contents as another set of wires wrapped around the nin to hold him in place. A great splat sounded as the paintballs met their mark, and there was an explosion of color. Naruto cheered and Sasuke grinned at the sight of their sensei covered and dripping in paint, wrapped tightly in wires. Their joy was short-lasted, however, as Kakashi disappeared in a poof of smoke, leaving behind a thoroughly vandalized academy chair. Ma, so eager for action. All three whipped their heads around at the voice, finding the masked nin staring down at them from the desk a row back, completely clean. Sakura smirked. An excellent substitution jutsu if she said so herself. What the heck, sensei? Naruto yelled, pointing. We so had you. His eye crinkled in the oh-so-familiar way Sakura was used to, and she felt the sudden desire to cry. Kakashi had been her stronghold and her anchor for the last 10 years after the war. He was her constant companion through thick and thin. To finally be able to see him up close and well made her heart constrict. How can I say this? He rubbed his chin, looking at the three of them. My first impression is, I don't like you guys. She had promised him to. Meet me at the roof by the south garden, he ordered, and with a poof, he disappeared. Man, we were so close. Naruto wailed. At least now we know he's somewhat competent, Sasuke smirked, a sense of respect in his eyes. Yeah, I guess, but it still sucks. She tapped both of their shoulders. I can sense someone coming down the hall. Shall we make a hasty escape? They nodded eagerly, not wanting to stay as culprits for the mass of paint all over the room. Ah, WHO did this? In the flash, they were gone. Laughter erupted between them as they sat down on the steps, chattering about the poor soul who found the aftermath of their prank. Now, put that disaster behind us, Kakashi said easily, sitting on the rail. Let's begin with introducing ourselves. Like what, sensei? She chirped, propping her chin in her palm. You know, your likes, dislikes, dreams for the future and stuff like that. You go first, sensei. Naruto demanded excitedly. Tell us how you got that Sharingan in your eye. Kakashi's lone eye widened by a fraction. Well, looks like I've got quite the team But that's a story for another time. I'm Hitaki Kakashi. I have no desire to tell you my likes or dislikes, dreams for the future, and I have a lot of hobbies. A dead silence traveled through the air. Okay. He clapped his hands, pointing to Naruto. You're next, Blondie. All right, I'm Uzumaki Naruto. He gave a cheek-splitting grin. I like ramen and training with my friends and having sleepovers at Sakura-chan's house. I dislike playing old man games like shogi and having dinner at Sasuke Tomi's place because they're all cold fishes. What was that, Dobi? My hobbies are playing pranks and my dream is to become the best Hokage Konoha has ever seen. Sakura let a laugh bubble in her throat as Naruto and Sasuke resumed a glaring match, arguing about whether or not the Uchiha clan was a pleasure to eat with. All right, moving on, Kakashi cleared his throat. You, dark and broody, you're up. Her laugh burst out as Sasuke scowled, and his hand came to smack her upside the head. Cradling her head with tears in the corner of her eyes, she grinned. My name is Uchiha Sasuke, he growled, glaring at the both of them before continuing. I like going for morning runs and training. I dislike having to deal with stupid people and eating sweet food. My hobbies include kenjutsu and studying history. And my dream is to surpass my brother as a shinobi. Kakashi nodded, looking towards her. And finally, giggly, your turn. She smiled at the nickname. I'm Haruno Sakura. I like hanging out with my friends and cooking. I dislike those who crave power over comrades, and my hobbies are playing old man games with Shikamaru and making seals. My dream is to be a field medic and protect people who are close to me. Oh, and save the world. Kakashi looked thoughtful. Okay, introductions are over. Tomorrow we're going to start our duties as shinobi, he said clearly, by starting off with survival training with the four of us. You're on, Kaka-sensei. Naruto declared, jumping to his feet. We can take anything. Really? He asked ominously. Even if I told you that out of the 27 graduates, only 9 will pass as genin? This training has a failure of 66%. Sakura got to her feet, Sasuke following soon after. She punched the palm of her other hand, giving Kakashi a feral grin. Challenge accepted. Name the time and place, sensei. After years of being with the man, Sakura had learned to read his expression from the small exposed area of his face. He was excited too. Very well. The details are on this paper. Meet me tomorrow in the training grounds and don't eat breakfast, you might throw up. With that, he disappeared in a plume of smoke. Kakashi was more than surprised. Although their profiles had indicated the three were close since childhood, he had never imagined it would have ingrained into their shinobi will as well. They were definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. He put down the timer on the tree stump, turning to see his potential students watch him back. They have good eyes. Start, he yelled. Instead of going into hiding, all three charged him with a determined expression, Sakura in the lead. He easily maneuvered around their smaller forms, twisting and turning to dodge their limbs. They were good. Speed and form-wise, Sakura was undoubtedly the best, but the two boys weren't far behind. He couldn't even read his beloved Icha. Naruto, Sasuke called. On it, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 5 more Narutos popped into existence, and Kakashi took a moment to appreciate their coordination. This team was it. They charged him with loud cries as Sakura and Sasuke jumped back to create space. They both flashed through quick seals and brought a hand over their mouth. Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu. Gamayuden no Jutsu. A great fireball erupted from Sasuke's mouth as Sakura released a torrential blast of thick oil, straight towards him. The entire training ground erupted in augmented flames, and Kakashi slid underground with a quick earth jutsu, shielding himself from most of the heat. Before he could decide on his next move, the ground split open around him, forcing Kakashi to leap into the open air. He stared, wide-eyed, as Sakura's foot decimated the entire field. A heavy force rammed into him from behind, and he turned to see Naruto grabbing onto his back, a wicked grin on his face. Got you, sensei. His hand reached for the bells on his waist, and Kakashi prepared for a substitution, but realized that the entire training field was burning in flames. Option 2, then. Turning to look Naruto in the eye, he placed a wide-scale genjutsu over the boy that showed him grabbing the bells and releasing his hold. Naruto blinked, his grasp loosening as both fell towards the ground. Genjutsu, Sasuke. I got him. Sasuke leapt after Naruto's falling form, catching the blonde before he could hit the ground. Sakura ran towards him, her speed startling his expectations. It seemed that every time he made a conclusion about this girl, she'd continue to break it. He briefly heard Sasuke force Naruto out of the genjutsu and decided to act. How about a separation? Creating 2 clones, he sent them after the boys, splitting them up into different areas of the field while he focused on the coral-haired girl. She shunshined behind him, stomping her foot right where he stood moments before. The earth groaned under her attack, cracking and giving into her strength as he flickered away. She was exceedingly fast, and wondered why none of this was written in her profile. It was as if he was fighting Shisui during his Anbu days. Secretive girl. As if realizing that one-on-one wasn't going to end well, she flickered backwards and away, heading right towards Sasuke. Their sudden combination caught his clone off guard as a well-placed palm strike from Sakura burst him from existence. Wordlessly, the two moved onto Naruto, eventually overpowering the second clone as well. In a swift movement, Sakura grabbed both Sasuke and Naruto by the collar of their shirts and vanished into the burning trees. A tactical regroup and retreat, It took a moment of wonder as Kakashi gazed around the destroyed training ground, noting the broken blocks of earth and the fire that seemed to rage strong. To his own surprise, his breathing had quickened and his Sharingan was spinning behind his headband, aching to be used. Since when had he ever gotten a good fight from Genin? Spreading out his senses, he felt the three of them clustered 100 feet to his left. He lifted his headband by an inch, allowing his Sharingan to gaze at their chakra levels. Naruto's, as he assumed, was massive and still raging like the sun. Sasuke was down by a fourth, and Sakura was also brimming with energy, her reserves going far deeper than he first thought. Impressive. The group suddenly split and Kakashi lowered his headband, anticipating their next attack. Sasuke came running out first, launching a barrage of kunai in his direction. He leapt right, letting the weapons fly by harmlessly onto the tree. The bushes rustled behind as Naruto leapt out, yelling in defiance. The two boys worked rather seamlessly, attacking and defending at given intervals, and soon enough, Sakura joined the fray. She came from above slashing out with a kunai, and he leapt back to dodge it. All three charged him once more, pushing him closer and closer towards the river. When Sasuke's fingers got a little too close to the bells, Kakashi began his counterattack, quickly kicking Naruto and Sakura in the stomach, and sending Sasuke flying back with an elbow. All three disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Startled, he made to move, but was frozen on the spot. The ground glowed beneath his feet and he stared down, noticing the complicated array of seals where he stood. Sakura. Sure enough, the real Sakura came forth, her hands together in a seal. You can thank Shikaku-san for this seal, sensei. She raised her right hand in the air, and his own hand moved to copy her, leaving the bells wide open. The river burst from behind him, and Sasuke and Naruto leapt out, drenched but grinning madly. Kakashi poured a sharp spike of chakra into the seal, trying to break it, but it quickly died as the letters glowed even brighter. Chakra absorption. He felt a laugh bubble in his throat as Naruto and Sasuke snatched a bell each from his waist, and ran to where Sakura stood. She released the seal, and the circle disappeared into the dirt. We did it! We did it! Naruto cheered, swinging Sakura in a massive bear hug. It worked. A melodious laugh filled the air as all three genin stood, completely disheveled, soaked in river water and dirty, but utterly triumphant. So what's it going to be, sensei? Sakura asked, slinging her arms around the two boys. You take all of us, or none of us. Kakashi felt his lips tug into a smile behind the mask, and his eye crinkled mischievously. Ah, you all pass. Watch over me, Minato-sensei. I'm going to make this team great. That's all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.